I'd like to call this meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. I am calling the February the 2nd, 2022 regular meeting of the West Country Costa Unified School District Board meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance at this time. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you. Now we go to the land acknowledgement at this time.
Thank you. We recognize that we are presently on the lands of the Chochenyo, Muwekma, Karkin, Ohlone peoples and acknowledge them as the first inhabitants of the land we currently occupy.
Thank you. Welcome. Now we are moving on to 8.4. Welcome procedures once again. Welcome to tonight's meeting. We're about to go into closed session. But before we do, the board is here to receive public comment on any closed session item that is agendized. The board will then adjourn to closed session and reconvene in open session to continue with the regular agenda at 6:30 p.m. If you are attending the meeting in person here at the John and you wish to make a public comment now on a closed session item, you will need to submit an orange request to address the board form to indicate your desire to speak. If participating by Zoom, you will need to raise your hand by clicking on the appropriate icon in the Zoom app or by pressing *9. If accessing the meeting by phone, there is no yielding a time to another speaker, and there is no substitution of speaker permitted. Please finish up the orange card, the comment card. Now, if you are here in the audience, and if you are in the Zoom or attending by phone, please get in line to speak by raising your hands now. To access translation of the agenda, click the top of the web page using the word English for translation into multiple languages. Meeting interpretation services are available by Zoom by clicking on the globe icon at the bottom of the screen. Due to the Brown Act, board members cannot discuss items that are not on the agenda and do not usually respond to items presented in the public comment. Please note that the order of business may be changed without notice. Now we go to roll call. Dr. Hurst.
Thank you. President Christian.
Present.
Trustee Clerk Gonzalez-Hoy.
Good afternoon, President.
Trustee Reckler.
Good afternoon, President.
Trustee Phillips.
Here.
Trustee Smith-Folds.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. Present.
Thank you very much. All present and accounted for.
Thank you, Dr. Hurst. Now, we are moving to A6, a disclosure of the items of the discussed in closed session, Government Code 43957-7. Tonight, the board will consider the conference with legal counsel regarding the pending litigation, conference with labor negotiators, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, complaint. Now, we will go to public comment on closed session item. Are there any public comment at this time?
No public comment at this time.
Thank you. Now, we will adjourn, go to closed session at this time. Of the West Contra Costa Unified School District School Board. To access translation of the agenda, click the top of the web page using the word English. For translation into multiple languages, meeting interpretation services are available in the Zoom by clicking on the globe icon at the bottom of the screen. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 crisis, the manner in which the Board of Education meetings are conducted has changed. Thank you in advance for your understanding and cooperation as we experiment with new ways to conduct the people business while allowing for maximum participation and adhering to our values of respect and safety for the community. We have changed public comment format, which now occurs at the beginning of the meeting. Public comment will last for no more than 1 hour and indicate any agendized and non-agendized items. The time allotted for each speaker is 2 minutes. We're about to start public comment. So if you are attending the meeting in person, you would need to submit an orange request to address the board form to indicate your desire to speak on an agenda item. Please finish those up hands and those and a staff member now. If participating by Zoom, you would need to raise your hand by clicking on the appropriate icon in the Zoom app by pressing *9. If accessing the meeting by phone, there is no yielding of time, nor is a substitution of speaker permitted. If you are making a public comment from Zoom, please raise your hand now. Due to the Brown Act, board members cannot discuss items that are not on the agenda and do not usually respond to items presented in public comment. And also, now we will have, is there a report out from closed session?
No, sir, there is no report out.
Thank you. The order of tonight, trustees will be Trustee Phillips, Clerk Gonzalez Hoy, Trustee Reckler, Trustee Smith-Fall, and myself. And then I forgot to add the two trustees, Trustee Leon and the other, Flores. Forgive me, Flores, and Trustee Flores. And so that will be the order of trustees.
Sir, at the last few meetings, you had them go first. Are they first tonight again? You had them go first.
Yes,
Are they first again tonight?
Trustee Phillips. Oh, student trustees.
Do they go before the adults?
Yes, they go first.
Okay.
Yes. Well, now we are on to B2. Report of ratification closed session. So nothing to report out. And now we go on to B3, which is public comment at this time. And we will start from in-house and then we'll work our way into the Zoom out. Here we have Sheila Swift. Come to the, Sheila.
I don't think is it on? Yeah, okay. Hi, everybody. How are you tonight? My name is Sheila Swift, and I'm here to express my concern over the vaccine mandate. I think it's important that you consider dropping it entirely. And if you can't do that, because so many students are not complying, you need to put it off until the fall. There's many reasons why I feel this way. I know that the mandate is unlawful in San Diego and in Piedmont School District. They both dropped the mandate. The district, you're not valuing the belief of the people who oppose the mandate. The district is ignoring the fact that vaccine injury is real and there exists something called antibody enhanced. I've forgotten the name of it, but it causes serious illness and it happens when a person has been vaccinated. The district is ignoring the fact that the young people are mostly protected from COVID simply because they're young. The district's primary role is to educate students and not to be health officials. The authority to control communicable diseases solely lies in the legislature, not the school district. Disallowing personal belief exemptions for teachers and not for students is not equitable. The district has completely miscalculated the number of students who would not become vaccinated. The district has no right to mandate the use of experimental vaccines on our children. It is immoral to take authority away from parents. And the district should stop wasting funds on the mandate that has already been deemed unlawful. But I could go on. I don't have much more time and I'll reserve it for others. And thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Next speaker we have is Mark Schultz.
Okay, my comment is on F2. So legal counsel's opinion on the election and its arguments lack credibility and reason. Counsel's opinion cites case law that relates to ordinances and contracts. Board bylaws, which the board is legally bound to follow, are neither of these. Counsel's opinion gives no weight to the intent of the bylaw. Instead, counsel's opinion conveniently describes the bylaw format that achieves the desired intent of fair rotation of the office of the president as merely considerations. In reality, the bylaw promotes that the process is established to achieve the bylaw's intent of fair rotation of board offices. Counsel's opinion downplays the bylaw's directive. This format will be followed except in unusual or exceptional cases. Without any unusual or exceptional circumstances, the board is violating the intent of the bylaw. Counsel's opinion states, while the bylaw expresses a preference, it does not purport to require the absolute result that the board clerk will become board president. In contrast, the bylaw reads, the board clerk will replace the outgoing president. Counsel appears to be confused. Counsel's opinion states the intent of the bylaw is to promote fairness by rotating the board presidency. Yet counsel's opinion supports an election process which frustrates the bylaw's intent, which is the same intent that counsel acknowledges. Again, counsel appears to be confused. Counsel's opinion is an unsuccessful attempt to gaslight the people. Interestingly, Mr. Phillips, who nominated Mr. Christian in violation of the bylaw, said at the last board meeting, and I quote him, "What I would like people to do is to be fair, is to be fair, is to be fair. I'm going to ask you to be fair. Let's be fair." Under Mr. Phillips' rules and counsel's opinion, it's possible that trustee areas never have representation in the office of the president. That's neither fair nor equitable. Mr. Phillips also said, let's follow the golden rule and let's do unto others as we want them to do unto us. And contrary to these words, he did unto trustee Smith Folds what he complained was wrongly done unto him. In an opinion piece authored by him and published in the Richmond Standard dated January 16, 2019, he quoted bylaw 9100.
All right, thank you. Next speaker we have is Kimberly Chamberlain.
Good evening, Kimberly Chamberlain. I have okay, up and down, up and down. It's been technology for the last 2 days for me. So I am the president of SSA, basically. I also am a member of the school district as a parent and grandparent for many years. Thank you very much for bringing more and more stress to our staff and our families with our mandates and our timelines. Please keep reaching out and getting us more assistance at our school sites. Our secretaries, our office managers, our custodians, our teachers, our other clerical staff that are out there that don't have those other titles, our administrators are stressed out. Please continue. I understand that next week there is also an interview panel for the Associate Superintendent of HR. Thank you very much for the invitation to the SSA union, since we are the only one that has not received the union request to sit on the panel. That was very considerate of the school district. Have a great evening.
Thank you. And now we will move into the hands that are raised, and I see a total of 17 hands. And that's what we will cut off, is at 17. And I would turn this over to staff now.
Our last public speaker for tonight will be Eddie Sanchez. And our first public speaker is Stella Miranda. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good evening, Superintendent and trustees. Tonight, I plan to speak about the unlawful and unconstitutional vaccine mandates. However, after an inappropriate remark by one of the trustees on the social media platform, I decided to address this issue in public. For far too long, this individual has been allowed to throw public temper tantrums, come in late, not excusing or announcing his presence, or leaving early and abruptly from meeting. As a public official, he demonstrates lack of integrity and transparency. Many parents have emailed me with derogatory comments towards him. They stated, "Phillips needs to go." I'm hoping people send emails to the school board, because he's very unprofessional. The majority of the parents are asking that he should resign. I could give you at least 30 comments, including posts from social media platforms. A public servant represents the community and listens to the community and its concerns. No one should question anybody's political views. Let me give you a quote. "Do you think Trump is still president?" Then it continued with, "I don't care what your political party is. I'm just curious, do you think Trump is still the president? Do you feel that the election for POTUS was stolen from Trump?" This is totally inappropriate for a public servant to allow to happen. I hope that the new student trustees are not influenced by any bad or unacceptable behavior. I ask student trustees to stand firm in your beliefs. Do not be swayed or manipulated or intimidated by anyone on this board. Thank you for your time.
Our next public comment is Gabby Micheletti. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, Gabby Micheletti, first grade teacher at Verde Elementary. Looking at tonight's agenda, I see leadership is tired of being reminded of the grossly out of turn decision to skip Jamila Smith-Folds' presidency. I teach my students that there's a difference between what is legal and what is moral or right. We spend time to talk about integrity, how we treat others, and how we make our community as good as possible for all members. Sadly, we seem to find ourselves led on many levels by those who never internalize these lessons. Shame on you for hiding behind what is maybe technically legal. That does nothing to repair all the trust you have destroyed from this community. In fact, it serves to further erode it, seeing your cowardice in this manner. On the other hand, while hiding behind legality in some areas, this district blatantly breaks other legal documents and contracts. To any UTR members listening, please be reminded that Keenan COVID trainings are not in our contract, and therefore you don't need to spend your already overwhelmed time completing them. Furthermore, your audacity to send these trainings while not following what is advised in them for basic safety in schools is alarming and frustrating. The effects of the chaotic leadership of this district continue to ripple through and damage the educations of the students entrusted to your care. I don't know if you are actively trying to drive away the teachers you do have and it is malicious, or it is incompetence. But as an educator, I know impact is far more important than intent. Each week, I hope you will start acting on what is right, moral, and student-centered. And I hope tonight's meeting will be a turn in that direction. As part of that direction, perhaps we should put Jamila Smith-Folds in the leadership position where she is meant to be and remove people who are being disrespectful to community members. Thank you.
Our next public comment is Katie Brohan. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
So hi, my name is Katie Brohan, parent in the district. I have 3 kids. First, I just want to state that I firmly oppose any modifications to the reopening resolution proposed by the trustees that would allow the district to go beyond state and local public health guidance on COVID-19 The UTR requested the option to switch to independent study in the event of an outbreak, not distance learning. This is a slippery slope, and as we learned from over a year of distance learning, presents significant equity issues. Unfortunately, many of us on the call tonight remember the many nights spent up past midnight at home listening to trustees Gonzalez-Hoy and Smith-Folds advocate to keep our students in distance learning long after it was reasonable. Frankly, the common sense of Trustee Christian is the only reason it even ended as soon as it did, alongside Trustees Phillips and Trustee Reckler. So forgive us if we're not trusting of any proposal that has the word distance learning anywhere in it. Second, it's disappointing to see that the school board allows for the sharing of vaccine misinformation by public commenters, like we've already heard tonight. Per the county public data, which was shared by John Joya earlier this week with the board and the superintendent, across all of our zip codes in our district, we have a 97% vaccination rate among youth ages 12 and up, at least partially vaccinated. It's 90% fully vaxxed. So it's not a vaccination issue here. It's a data issue, and a big one. There's no incentive for anyone to upload their information if the goalposts keep moving. You need to support families in getting their data into the system before you assess what sort of capacity you have to serve students virtually. But individuals who have opted not to vaccinate their children ages 12 and up by now likely aren't going to do it unless it's mandated. And they're the ones posing a significant health risk to the 97% of the population who made the right choice to get vaccinated. Continuing to allow them in school buildings is not okay. Thank you.
Our next public comment is Jeffrey Bean Jr. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Hi, I am Jeffrey Bean Jr. I teach 5th grade at Shannon Elementary. I'm ready. I wanted to call to tell you thank you for appropriating extra funds for the Shannon's new multi-purpose room. I think it will be great for students. I hope that it gets built soon. Have a good night.
Our next public comment is Ernesto Falcon. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening. Good evening, board. My name is Ernesto Falcone. I want to just comment on a couple of items. One, on the discussion that is coming about revisiting whether to keeping the school open or not. I think as many parents have, we need to be tightly tethering our decisions here to public health authorities and their expertise. I think the closures, now that we are 2 years into the pandemic, there's lots of information and evidence and studies that show that closures have real harm to children, both in their learning loss, both in their emotional development. So it is not surprising that the governor, the president of the United States, and many others in political leadership have really pushed against closing schools in any way, shape, or form at this point, and the schools have pretty resiliently proven to be safe. I also really want to remind folks, I was one of the lawyer parents who had a right to the district back when we were fighting to reopen the schools, that the money to the school is contingent on the school being open, and the grounds to close the school for any sort of remote learning is limited. You cannot be just a decision of the board. It has to actually be endorsed by public health. So really, it is very important to remember that this is not something that we can just decide on our own and then not risk any sort of budgetary loss. The funding from SBA 98 is contingent on the school being open. And lastly, the Governor Newsom has stated that we're going to be transitioning to an endemic stage, which means there's going to be a new set of rules. And I really think we need to start evolving and understanding what the world is in a post-Omicron environment as the surge is waning. We're one of the most vaccinated areas in the country. That's something to be proud about. And I really think we should be sticking with the state's requirement to push the vaccines and the requirements. I think it's July that the state actually requires vaccine mandates. So there's not a good reason to pull back from that. The vaccines have saving lives. That data is showing that even under Omicron, this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated, and we have to help people save lives. Thank you.
Our next public comment is Frank Hahn. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I want to make something very clear. I don't co-parent with you. We, this board and I, do not make parental and medical decisions together regarding my children. My wife and I make those decisions based on the best data available along with our pediatrician. I'm hoping to speak to the parents listening tonight and every night that you're doing the same for the safety of your kids. To the board members with the ability to vote, please correct me if I'm wrong, but thus far, there has been zero information relayed from any board member here that they're in possession of education or experience in any field of healthcare. The recommendations, decisions, and mandates have and continue to come from a place of personal opinion and not an opinion derived from a career in medicine or healthcare. I've made it very clear prior, and I'll say it again, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. While I have no need to divulge mine or my children's medical history, I can tell you with conviction that I agree with all of the other approved and recommended child and adolescent immunizations listed on the CDC schedule for ages 18 years or younger, posted on the CDC website, all backed by American Academy of Pediatricians, family physicians, College of Obstetricians, Gynecologists, midwives, and so on. I say this due to long-term data and appropriate studies across various avenues. I myself have over 20 years of robust healthcare experience as a paramedic, firefighter, educator, instructor, and a registered nurse with a degree held in each field, along with board, state, and national certifications. Prior to serving my community, I served honorably in the U.S. Army. I don't say this to tip my hat or to sound full of myself. I want those listening to understand that my thoughts are always made with the best intentions and to promote courage in other parents who may be fearful of speaking out. Courage is contagious. I've always taught my students and peers and friends to stand on principle, even if you're standing alone. Again, tonight, more and more stand up. I encourage all the parents, teachers, and staff to stand up, speak up, be courageous, because courage is contagious. Thank you, everybody.
Our next public comment is Ellen Bialu. Please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak in public comment today. I really don't understand why the language is being reconsidered around the COVID-19 reopening resolution. I don't understand why it was rushed and put on. I don't understand. I have very little clarity about why it's on the agenda. And it stands in stark contrast to the joyful week that my child had at her elementary school in the district, Harding, where they celebrated 100 days of school. And she had an absolute ball celebrating that. And I want to thank the staff and the faculty and the administrators who have made that possible and made her have such a positive experience. To me, there's a real disconnect between the amazing work of the district and safely reopening the school environments and the fear and misinformation that's being propagated in the public comment and in the posture that the board is having in even reconsidering the language of this resolution. The district is not full of public health officials, people whose job it is to mine the data and keep the public safe. I oppose any modifications to the language of the COVID-19 reopening resolution that allows the district to go above and beyond county and state public health guidance. What would that even mean? What are the implications? The district is negotiating with the union and finding common ground, and I want that to continue to happen as we think about masking protocols and we think about vaccine mandates. I mean, as dire as an auditorium with 4 classes of students sounds, who is online learning better for? There's not a lot of data to support it's better for the children, definitely not better for poor people. Is sending all of those children home better in terms of viral transmission? I would wager no. We have a lot safer school environments than students being sent out into the community where this virus is now endemic. I would reiterate, we also need to stay the course on the vaccine mandate to keep our schools safer. Again, the county health services data as of today, 90% of 12 to 18-year-olds have 2 doses. 97% have at least 1 dose. So stay the course on this. Changing could endanger funding for an already poor district. Thank you.
Our next public comment is Kenya Cervantes. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Kenya Cervantes, and I'm speaking to the Williams complaint that's on the agenda because that's my complaint. And I'm speaking tonight because it seems that the folks in charge are fighting tooth and nail to dismiss the complaint and make it seem as though everything is going great at the virtual academy, and the truth is that it's not. We had one supply pickup on October the 15th. That's 2 months after school started, where we picked up a pencil, a couple pencils, some paper, some coloring tools, a whiteboard, and some books. My child's in 3rd grade. We picked up my math books. We don't use my math, so those books don't do anything for us. Our assigned reading for English is via photos taken on a cell phone that are uploaded to Google Classroom. If we want the physical book, we have to buy it ourselves. I've requested English language materials multiple times. I haven't gotten any of it. And I've requested the Zern workbook that we've been told we can grab if we want it, still don't have it. Just wondering why people are acting like I'm asking for a lot. I'm just asking for an equitable and fair education for the 3rd graders at Vista Virtual. Thank you.
Our next public comment is David Modgu. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening, board members. Trust. Again, we talk about trust, and we have a U.S. Supreme Court justice who misrepresented the numbers for children being infected. She was stating them at 100,000 when it was only 1,000 a week. We have a study from Kaiser that's shown 1 out of 1,900, that's 1,900 students or young men will be affected seriously by myocarditis, if not dead. The numbers are there and growing. The numbers for younger students that have only been vaccinated in the last month and a half, there's been 800 deaths. So I don't want my kid to be one of your numbers. I want the right to protect my kid, as the inventor, Robert Malone, of the mRNA DNA sequencing for this vaccination said, do not give this to your children. There is problems with this, causes heart and neurological damage. All these people can say it's misinformation, but you're not looking at Germany. 96% of Germans were vaccinated. 70% of them had Omicron, especially after 3 doses of vaccination. At work, everyone I know is vaccinated has had Omicron. I have not. I test twice a week and I know I'm clean. Natural immunity is real, and the right to choose is real. And it goes against people's religion to put fetal tissue in your body, which is part of the process of making these vaccines. That's unethical. And it's discrimination to force people to do things that is against their religion or personal belief. Thank you.
Our next public comment is Layla Weyer. Please unmute yourself.
Hi there, and good evening. I'd like to say thank you to the board and the district and so many teachers and staff for working so incredibly hard to keep kids in school. You have one sacred mandate to educate the children of this district, to educate the next generation coming of age in our community. And thank you for working to do that. Distance learning doesn't work. You're keeping kids in school, you're educating them. I very strongly support keeping school open for children who need or want to participate, and putting off the vaccination mandate to comply with the schedule that the state is putting in place. Please don't exclude any children from partaking in the education and community they so desperately need to live and survive. Thank you very much. Keep it up. Goodbye.
Our next public comment is Francisco Ortiz. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, board members, Superintendent Hurst, staff and community. My name is Francisco Ortiz and I'm a 5th grade teacher on release to serve as Vice President, Community Schools Organizer for United Teachers of Richmond. I'm here today to share and appreciate publicly all of the community stakeholders who organized and collectively advocated for increased health and safety measures for our students, educators, support staff, and our community's well-being. Over 900 students, family members, educators, school support staff, and community partners signed on to the community petition that I shared with the board and Superintendent Hurst last week. I want to thank every family member, student, community ally, and educator who took time to write to the board, district, and county leadership, who with a collective voice said, enough is enough. Our students, educators, and families deserve better. I also want to acknowledge and thank the 4 board members who acknowledged and were responsive to the community's petition and needs in our emails. I also want to thank every single UTR educator who led and participated in school site actions district-wide last week and included families and students in the advocacy efforts. You wore red for ed, you worked to rule, you walked in and walked out and distributed informational flyers to families. It was because of the collective action from our entire community that we now have improved safety measures in place. It is with our collective voice and our power that we can continue to hold our district accountable to keep the safety measures we need to keep our schools open and our students, educators, and families more secure. We must remain vigilant and cognizant. The struggle continues, and we will continue to fight for the schools our students deserve. Lastly, but certainly not least, I want to welcome and appreciate student trustees Lung and Flores as they make their invaluable contributions to the board this spring semester. Your advocacy and leadership in this space is essential to keeping our adults informed of the realities you and your peers face on a daily basis. You are powerfully inspiring. I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Our next public comment is Jean Kinster. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening, board members. I'm Jean Kincher and I work at Verde K-8. I look forward to hearing from the lawyers why the bylaws were not followed when electing the president this time. I would like to encourage the board to make sure that the subrate is raised enough to compete with surrounding districts. I am curious why we do not hear the pledge, land use, or other items on the agenda when we're logged into the Zoom app. Why are students marked absent after 10 days of quarantine? Some families are stuck in an extended quarantine because this COVID is infecting family member after family member after family member. Please allow these families to have a quarantine placed on their attendance instead of absent. I would like to have an item on the next agenda that explains why I do not see more janitorial support at my school. Verde K-8, our night janitor has 4 rooms to deep clean tonight. 4 hours of cleaning due to COVID cases in classes. On top of that, he has significantly more than half of the school to clean on his detail sheet. How can my school get properly cleaned like this? What will you do to make sure my students are safe? What will you do to make sure my coworkers and all staff are safe? What will you do to make sure I am safe? Right now, I have 2 active COVID cases in my classroom. 2 students that recovered and just joined my class this week, and 1 other student that rejoined in the past 12 days. Dr. Hurst stated over and over again in a past meeting, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Please hear us. Please address these issues. Hear us. Keep us safe. Explain to us why the bylaws are not followed. Create an attractive wage. Hear us. Please hear us.
Our next public comment is Don Gosney. Please unmute yourself.
On tonight's agenda, you have an item called Review of Process for Selection of Board President. But I worry that it's been mislabeled. In my opinion, it should be labeled, the board is finally going to talk about one of the issues that worries the bejesus out of the community. You've been sitting as the Board of Education for a tad over a year, and instead of behaving as the Board of Education, most of the time you're acting like 5 distinct individuals who just happen to sit on the same elected board. There does not appear to be any cohesiveness about you. You often act as individuals, and you let your petty differences, which are often personal differences, get in the way of doing what's best for the community you were elected to serve. Sometimes you'll vote on an issue just to be sure that another board member does not get his or her way, even when you know that the vote will not be in the best interest of the students, parents, and taxpayers of West County. Sometimes it seems like you want to own that old adage that you'll cut off your nose to spite your face. The bottom line is that you are often dysfunctional. And your recent election of a board president is just such an example. Last year, you spent tons of money that essentially came out of the classrooms to bring in consultants to advise you to follow your own rules, the board bylaws and board policies set in place to govern how things work. You were even advised to make an effort to revamp those bylaws and policies so they address the ways things work or need to work today. But that was ignored. We spent many hours hashing over whether the public should be allowed to speak and because you could not put aside your petty differences, we ended up with a continuation of the very same problem we sought to correct. You have a bylaw that spells out in very specific terms how the board president and clerk shall be selected. But that bylaw also says at the end that you can ignore all of that if you really want. Really? When the main points of the bylaws were bypassed, some people were saying that this was payback after a previous board member could not muster the support to be elected as the board president. But that would be petty and childish, but you're all more mature than that. The presidency is about leadership, and since you all took office, you're not seeing leadership anywhere on this board. Try to remember why you sought this office. Thank you.
Our next public comment is Maureen Wetter. Please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, board. Thank you for the opportunity to comment tonight, and I'll be very brief. I have 2 children in the district, and I just wanted to say that I oppose changes to the previous reopening decision. We should be following the state and county guidelines and not making up our own guidelines about this matter. Thank you.
Our next public comment is Lisa Disbro. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I'm a graduate some time ago of Richmond Unified School District and a recently retired teacher. I've fully support following the board policy for electing the president and clerk, and that has been ignored. And I think it's created a serious distrust in the community. And in addition, I would like you to listen to the words of Dr. Robert Malone, the inventor of the mRNA platform, in his own words regarding the vaccine and students. He is a grandfather, he has vaxxed himself, and he is warning parents about the outcome of vaccinating youth. Here he goes.
And the safety of the mRNA vaccines.
My name is Robert Malone. I'm a physician and a scientist, but more importantly, I'm a father and a grandfather. I don't usually read from a prepared speech, but this is so important that I wanted to make sure that I got every single word and fact, scientific fact, correct. I stand by this statement with a career dedicated to vaccine research and development. I'm vaccinated for COVID, and I'm generally pro-vaccination. I've devoted my entire career to developing safe and effective ways to prevent and treat infectious diseases. Here's the thing. Before you inject your child, a decision that is irreversible, I wanted to let you know the scientific facts about this genetic vaccine, which is based on the RNA vaccine technology I created. There are 3 main issues that
I've run out of time, but basically he says it's playing Russian roulette with your children's health. Thank you very much.
Our next public comment is Mackenzie Martin. Please unmute yourself.
Hello. I've been attending these meetings for a while now. If you are a board of trustee, parent, school, and district staff member, I ask that when you complain about something wrong within the district, please also bring solutions during these meetings. It is unproductive to just point fingers and blame. When we bring solutions, we can help the board and the superintendent team make better decisions to help our students. Please remember that we are in an unprecedented historical time where these COVID variants are changing and there are nationwide district staff shortages. There are many teachers, administrators, the superintendent and his team who are working hard to work during these trying times to help WCCUSD students succeed. Please add action to your words, listen and respect differing opinions to really create change. Thank you.
Our next public comment is Maria Almanza. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening. My name is Maria Almanza. Today I'm going to share with you an audio from Dr.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Good evening. My name is Maria Almanza. Today I'm going to share with you a few seconds of an audio from Dr. Robert Malone. He is a pioneer of the mRNA vaccine.
These vaccines were designed for the original Wuhan strain, different virus. Whether they made sense for protecting our elderly and frail from the original virus.
Sorry, ma'am, we can't hear you.
Vaccines are leaky. They have poor
Sorry, so basically, can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, so I was trying to play on audio, but I'm running out of time. So it's from Dr. Malone. He's explaining how clearly these vaccines do not work. They do possess dangerous risks to our children. And I just want you all to know that your health is your responsibility and your choice. You are not going to decide for my children. I'm going to decide what is best for them. And I'm basing this off of facts. It's not misinformation simply because other people disagree with this. The truth is already coming out and you cannot unvaccinate these kids in the future when they have all these health issues. I also want to address Mr. Phillips. You owe Stella an apology. You lash out and antagonize when you are not in agreement. Your behavior is unacceptable. Step down. You are toxic to be on the school board. Stop the mandates. Thank you.
And our last public comment for tonight is Eddie Sanchez. Please unmute yourself.
You hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so to whoever voted for this experimental vaccine mandate, we were told to follow the science. You were told to follow the science too. I'm going to give you a little bit right now.
The two doses of the vaccine offer very limited protection, if any. The 3 doses with the booster, they offer reasonable protection against hospitalization and deaths. Against deaths, I think very good.
Sir, we can't hear you.
Okay, so that was Mr. Roberto Borla. He's the CEO of Pfizer. He was earlier this month, he was in a live interview talking about how his vaccine failed from getting COVID or spreading it, even with a booster. It could help you from going to the hospital, but it won't help you from the infection. Whatever he tried to say there, it didn't make any sense. Also, CDC Director Michelle Walensky, Dr. Robert Malone, and Dr. Fauci were all in interviews earlier this year. That's why the Senate voted against the mandate. The Supreme Court voted against the mandate. Now they're talking about dumping the mandate from the hospitals. This was all to keep the kids safe from getting it and spreading it to others. Okay, the science is already settled. Everybody in the whole planet that's got to do with science and in the medical field just told us that there's no vaccine out there that could help you from getting COVID or spreading it. Even Pfizer, the only vaccine that's been approved, can't help you from this thing. We got studies from Israel. They're the worst country of COVID cases today, and they're the most vaccinated country in the world. Okay, we're done following the science. The science is settled. This vaccine expired with Omicron. Okay, I think it's time to follow the money because none of this mandate stuff makes any sense. Let's follow the science, not let's follow the money. This is evil. Stop it.
Okay. Okay, board, we are now, thank you for everyone who gave public comment this evening. Okay, board, we are now on to B4, gender review and adoption. Dr. Hurst, would you be able to outline for us how much time you think we need for each of the following items, superintendent report, and each action item, and each of the discussion item? Dr. Hurst.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. For the Superintendent of Communication, it's going to be roughly a 15-minute presentation. So that's not counting questions. For the action items, E1 and E2, that could be a quick conversation or a lengthy conversation. But looking at E3 and E4, I would estimate that those conversations are roughly 1 hour. Then for the discussion items, F1 and F2, I would also estimate that those items are between 30 and 45 minutes.
Thank you. Board, I ask you to be succinct in your comments and to pick 1 or 2 focus points for the evening so that we can move along and at a good pace. Thank you in advance for your cooperation. Board, are there any adjustments that you wish to make to the agenda this evening? Yes. Clerk Gonzalez-Hort.
Thank you, President Christian. For the full board, President Christian and I spoke, and we would both, well, I would like to pull E1 and E2 because we believe that the reason why we had asked for this has already been achieved. And Dr. Hurst mentioned to us that we are following guidelines with what we the intention behind bringing both those items. So we would like to pull both those items since we're already implementing what we wanted to bring.
All right, thank you.
Oh, President Christian, I apologize. I also forgot. There has to be a change on C2. So when we make the motion for approval of the agenda, we have to change the Mira Vista fundraiser for May 7th instead of February 2nd.
Okay, February. All right, thank you. And are there any other adjustments? All right. Going in order. Trustee Leon.
Point of order. I would like to make a comment before the vote starts. So I'll wait whenever it's.
Okay.
Leon, yes.
Angelica, yes. I mean, Flores, yes.
Trustee.
President Christian, point of order. I believe that we are in comments.
Oh, we in comments.
Yeah, so Trustee Phillips could make his comments, but also to clarify with the student trustees that if they have comments, we're in that part right now.
Okay, so just going back to student trustees, any comments?
Regarding comments?
Leon?
No comments. I thought we were approving the agenda.
Trustee Flores?
No comment.
Trustee Phillips?
I want to thank President Christian and Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy for pulling items E1 and E2. In my opinion, their decision to pull these items reaffirms the board's vote to reopen schools 100% and to follow local, state, and federal guidelines. I hope as a community and as a board, we can finally lay this issue to rest. Children should be in school and elected officials should follow the guidance of public health experts during a public health crisis. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Trustee Clerk Gonzalez-Hoy.
Thank you, President Christian. I mean, I would like to thank Trustee Phillips for thanking us, but at the same time, I did want to clarify, this was never about closing schools. This was about E1 and E2, were about providing flexibility to staff to be able to implement stronger safeguards around COVID in our schools. It was never about closing schools. And for at least for me in the intention, and I believe in conversations with President Christian, it was never about that. Our intention was to leave exactly the language as it was and just adding some additional language to allow for flexibility around testing and masking and a couple other things. So I know in social media, there was a lot of concerns. We heard tonight in public comment, it was never about that for us, but it was about providing flexibility during this time to ensure that we can provide as much safety as we can for our staff and our students. And seems like we're already doing that through the work the superintendent, his staff, and UTR and our unions are doing, which is why we decided to pull it. And I'm thankful for them for ensuring that we are keeping our schools as safe as possible. President Christian, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We go to Trustee Reckler.
Thank you. I don't have anything.
We go to Trustee Smith-Fall.
I think my only comment is the board needs to have self-evaluation. You open schools. The majority of the board voted to open schools. Did you do it well? The E1 and E2 was about allowing flexibility to where you can say we kept schools open well because we are centering safety. This was not about closing schools. It was about keeping schools open well and providing the protection that was needed to keep schools open to all children and all teachers and all staff members. So President Christian, Clerk Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy, I am standing in a blessed assurance that you are going to make sure that we keep the schools open well, because you are focusing on what the teachers, the staff, the students, and the community have all said they needed to keep schools open well. So I think we can lay to bed patting ourselves on the back that we opened it. Good job. But if you want to do something, be self-evaluative. Did you do it well? Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Smith-Fall. And I don't have anything for myself. Now, may I have a motion? A motion to push forward?
President Christian, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda with pulling items E1 and E2 from the agenda and with a clarification, the C2, the Mayor Vista fundraiser is happening May 7th, not February 2nd. Thank you.
Okay, and can I get a second? Second. Okay. All right, and now we'll move on to the vote. Trustee Leon.
Trustee Leon, no.
Trustee Flores.
Flores, no.
Trustee Phillips.
Yes.
Clerk Gonzalez-Hoy.
Yes, thank you.
Trustee Reckler.
Reckler, yes.
Trustee Smith-Fall.
Student trustees, I hear you and I know why you voted no, but be sure that we will keep our eye on it and make sure that everyone's safe. I'm going to go ahead and vote yes, but I hear you and I see you and I appreciate you too. Thank you.
Thank you. And Yes.
Just a quick question. I didn't hear it. Who was the second on the motion? Trustee Christian?
And myself. So, yes. And so the motion carries. And
President Christian, point of order.
yes, go ahead.
It's going to carry anyway, but I do feel that I need to stand with the students on this, so I want to change my vote to no. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, we will move Now we are on to C, consent items. Consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted, approved, and adopted by one motion. When a request for removal or discussion or explanation is received, any consent item that are pulled will be heard after F discussion item and reports. Just to go back to clarify, just approval of the minutes. And a motion to approve the minutes.
President Christian, sorry, point of order. We have to request to see if there are changes to the minutes first.
You said see what?
To see if there are changes to the minutes.
Okay, changes. So. They should not clarify any discussions or changes to the minutes. All right.
President Christian, since I don't see anyone with their hands up, I will move to approve the minutes from, sorry. October 19th. I apologize.
All right. So now we will move to the C consent item.
Sorry, it needs a second, and then we need to vote
second.
to approval.
Yes. Does anyone second to move the items?
Reckler will second the October 19th minutes as presented.
All right. And we will go to the vote. Student trustee Leon,
Yeah, yes.
trustee Flores,
Flores, yes.
trustee Phillips,
Yes, sir.
trustee clerk Gonzalez Hoy,
Yes.
trustee Reckler,
Reckler, yes.
and trustee Smith Fall.
Smith Folds, yes.
And I am a yes. And so motion carries. And now we will move to the consent items.
President Christian, I move that we approve the consent items.
All right, is there a second?
Reckler will move the consent items, noting the change in the fundraising date for Mira Vista's fundraiser.
All right. And now we will move to the vote. Trustee Leon. Trustee Flores.
Flores, yes.
Trustee Phillips.
Yes, sir.
Clerk Gonzalez Hoy.
Yes.
Reckler, yes.
Smith Folds, yes.
All right, thank you. And the motion carries, and the consent calendar is approved. And now we will go to D, the Superintendent Communication.
Thank you very much, Board President. We could bring up the presentation. We have one item that we wanted to bring the board and the public up to date with, and that's our substitute recruitment plan. And we have our interim HR chief, human resource chief, Mr. Michael Wattenpaw, that's going to share this with us.
Good evening, nice to be here. So do I do the PowerPoint from here? Sorry, folks. Or just slides through? Thank you. All right, so just for perspective, on January 11th, Governor Newsom issued a resolution that temporarily loosened the guidelines for hiring substitute teachers through March the 31st. Individuals had a bachelor's degree and fingerprint clearance could qualify for a temporary certificate to allow them to substitute in our classrooms. It also extends the length of time substitute teachers can be assigned to a class to 120 days. And it also provides greater flexibility for any of our retired teachers to work as substitutes. Let's go next slide. So during the week of January the 14th, the cabinet team came together and we began our campaign, Whole Child, Whole Community. A substitute recruitment plan was initiated. We have both a website dedicated specifically to recruiting substitutes, and we have a social media campaign that we're going to be continuing to expand. Human Resources has established and posted the guidelines online as well as on our website, outlining exactly what you need to do if you want to be a certificated substitute or a classified substitute. Next slide. So through the beginning of this week, we have received and are processing more than 35 applications for temporary substitute certificates. The majority of these individuals have demonstrated their bachelor's degree and have also been fingerprinted. Once that has been completed, we forward it to the county for them to issue the temporary certificate for that individual to be able to sub. We are going to complete the temporary sub processing and begin to assign to available assignments in our district while we continue to recruit additional individuals. We also have identified a number of community-based organizations that we're going to reach out to. There's volunteer groups and others in the community that might be interested in helping us. And so we're going to be doing that outreach this coming week. Communications department has developed some recruitment videos, encouraging people to apply because it's not difficult. We're also going to expand our media outreach with local advertisements, both print and social media, and likely potentially radio. And we're planning, again, launch the paid media part of the campaign with advertisements next week. So next steps really is for us to continue to monitor and collect feedback from our site staff and our new substitute teachers to find out what's working, what's not working, and what we might need to do to adjust to make it smoother for all involved. That's where we are.
So, Mr. President, that's what we have. That's the update we have. And now we turn it back over to you for questions.
Okay, thank you. And board, looking for clarified questions. Are there any clarified questions for the superintendent report? And we'll start with Trustee Leon.
I have one brief question regarding clarification. Besides the bachelor's degree and fingerprinting, are there any other clearance requirements prior to hiring?
No.
Thank you very much.
Trustee Flores?
Yeah, my question is, I would like more explanation. Like, what do you mean on loosen guidelines? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry. Basically, we wanted to put together a one-page descriptor of the various steps you needed to go to if you wanted to be a certificated sub or a classified sub, so that we'd make it very easy for the individual coming in to volunteer and to get fingerprinted and provide their information. And so again, it's listed on the Human Resources website. It literally is a one-page outline of what you need to do and the steps for either classified or certificated staff.
Okay, another question is, would the substitutes continue on the class if the teacher's absent, or will they just, you know, on my experiences on having substitutes, will they just sit down and just look at the class?
My understanding is that if you have been identified with a temporary sub certificate, by March 31st, you can continue for about 6 months.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next we'll go to Trustee Phillips.
No questions, sir.
Thank you. And next we go to Clerk Gonzalez-Hoy.
Thank you, President Christian. My first question is for Mr. Ryan Phillips or for you, Mr. Warren Paul. Hopefully I said your last name.
Very good, thank you.
I love all the social media campaign that we're doing. That's been really great. I was actually at the DMV and it came up while I was waiting. I was wondering if we're doing any old school campaigning as well. Like, you know, bulletin boards, outreach to the cities, things like that.
I can answer that. Thank you for the question. So we have another campaign as well that's going on that we're launching around recruiting teachers permanently. So my staff has actually, we made a list of potential places to advertise both, including the DMV, which you saw where we already have a relationship on the back of buses and at movie theaters as well. Previously, we have advertised at the Hilltop Theater. So we do have basically a list of different avenues that we can potentially advertise. We're working on graphics right now, and we're trying to understand the kind of budgetary constraints for both of these campaigns. But our plan is to actually launch those both next week. We're looking into billboards as well, bus ads, movie theater ads, radio ads in Spanish and in English, print media, and television ads as well. That's the scope that we're examining right now. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Back to you, President Christian.
All right, thank you. Next, Trustee Reckler.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions. The first one is can you explain what the difference is between a certificated sub and a classified sub?
Certainly. To be in charge of students in a classroom, you have to have a teaching credential. And so that would be the certificated group of employees. So they have a teaching they don't have a teaching credential, but they are being approved as emergency substitutes. And so they can choose either a classified position or a certificated. My hunch is, as the board moves forward with considering increasing the sub rate, that most would look to do the certificated because it will pay much different than a classified position. Does that help?
And once again, what's a classified?
Classified position, typically in our district, it would be the group that represents, the Teamsters represent, and they are typically school support positions. We really couldn't do the job of the district without them, but they're not necessarily teaching children in classrooms.
Okay, and how long does the process take?
So once they come in, literally we can fingerprint them within about 10 minutes. And then we're forwarding it to the county and they let us know they're processing. We expect to know tomorrow or the next day who has been cleared so we can begin using them.
How many approximately are you looking for on both?
So we had identified, we'd love to have 100, but that might be aspirational. And so if we get these 35 through, we probably look to do another 15 or 20, so that we're looking at over 50 to 60 subs. And if the demand is great and we have a good response, then we'll continue to recruit people.
And on the classified side, how many are you looking for? Or
Probably about the same number.
about the same number? Is there any training or onboarding or?
I think we haven't discussed it specifically, but I think, yes, we need to provide an overview of just substitute 101 basics in terms of how to help them survive the day in the classroom successfully.
I have a great comment. I'll get to that in the end. And what community partners are we looking to work with?
I'm sorry, I don't have the list with me, but I can provide that to you under separate cover.
Okay, that's it. I do have a couple of comments at the end.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Trustee Smith-Fall.
Just for clarification, do you need a bachelor's to be both certificated and classified?
Only for the certificated.
Okay. And then can you speak to the equity and placement? How do we determine where subs go?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Can you speak to the equity and placement? How do we determine where subs go?
I think we're going to look at those school sites that have the greatest needs in terms of staff that are out. We've been doing that from the central office this whole month. But if we have these cadre of substitutes that are able to go out, we would position them at those sites that had the greatest number of vacancies, so that those classes would not have to be combined and that the learning would continue in those classes.
And then you said that you were going to talk to new subs. Are you going to have a conversation with our long-term subs that we have in the district?
That's an excellent suggestion, and we certainly can do that.
And then can you give me a kind of an explanation of what your expectation is for subs?
I think, again, we want to provide them the tools they need to manage the classroom, as well as be able to deliver the lesson plans that have been left by the classroom teacher. And I think there'll be varying degrees, and we'll want to be monitoring our subs as they start and providing any support that they might need that we hadn't thought of.
And then what's the numerical demand for subs now? Estimated number of subs that we need daily.
I don't have that information. Does anybody else? Larissa, do you know? Number of subs on a daily basis.
And it doesn't have to be an exact number.
Give me just a second, Trustee Smith-Folds. I'll actually pull up a report from last night to tell you, and it's typically around the same. I can pull up a couple that I have. So this report actually shows that this was just yesterday, that of the subs, so this is not an overall average, so I don't want to say that, but there were about 65 subs yesterday for 292 vacancies. So, and that was just yesterday, but I can have HR give you a more detailed report around the number of subs that we typically get. Typically, it's ranged between 60, somewhere between 60 to 100 on a given day subs, but some of the vacancies have ranged up to 500 on a given day as well.
Okay, thank you for that. And then the rest are comments, President Christian.
Thank you. And now I don't have any questions. We'll move now to comments, and we'll start with Trustee Leon. Any comments?
Yeah, just a brief comment. I wanted to add on to Trustee Jamila Smith-Folds' point. I wish that substitutes will be equitably distributed across different schools, and that a district would utilize the correct background checks and procedures required to hire said subs, to not rush the process if necessary, and to make sure that only the most qualified candidates are becoming subs. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Trustee Flores?
No comment.
Thank you. We have Trustee Phillips.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. And we have Clerk Gonzalez-Hoy.
Thank you, President Christian. First to Mr. Ryan Phillips, just quick comment, sorry, about the old school ads. I really appreciate what you guys have done so far. Many years ago, Dr. Harder said that was some of the most effective advertisements. Dr. Harder was our superintendent 2 superintendents ago. What he said, he put some in Oakland and got to steal many subs during that time. So if we could do that, I'd love to steal subs from all over the districts around us. So just thinking about the most effective places for those ads. But thank you to you and your team for all the work that you're all doing. And then to follow up on the comments from Trustee Leong and Trustee Smith-Folds, I agree. I think that if we can look at what schools, Dr. Hurst, are the most affected, where there's the highest need, I would love if we could prioritize those schools as we get subs. As we know, Richmond High School has been heavily affected, and some schools in the Flatlands have been heavily affected. I would love if we could prioritize them as we continue to get more subs. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we go to Trustee Reckler.
Thank you. I do have a number of comments, but I'll consolidate and send all those in later. But the big one that I really want to hit is I think it's different if you're working with people who have already been subs and you're taking them from other districts, or they're coming from Marin or from Oakland. But if you're building a cadre, I think it's really important to spell out from the ground up what you're talking about. I mean, I don't think that the typical mom, if they're not involved in education, is going to know the difference between a certificated sub and a classified sub. So you really have to start basic without the ed speak. You know, you can be in a classroom here, or you could be a school secretary or whatever. I mean, I see a lot of opportunities if you can train, you know, a number of people that I mean, this would be like really great. I mean, it's not all the time. You can kind of pick your assignments. You can pop in and out for a day. You can get familiar with the site. I mean, I think that there's a lot out there. So I think very plain language is important. The other thing that I think is really important is training, especially around classroom management and what to do if a sub plan happens not to be left. I mean, like there's some emergency things that you have to do or know. And so I think there really does need to be some training and some familiarity with the site. I think ways to do that, we've talked about this for years, the people that are on the yard, they already know the kids, they already have that rapport, they've kind of got the respect, and then you put them in the classroom and it transfers, you know, so there are ways to do that well, and I think we could be really effective at this with a good program. I have other suggestions, but that's it for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And next we go to Trustee Smith-Folds.
I want us to be very aware of what teaching is, because it says it's a substitute teacher. We have to understand what teaching is and what our teachers do. Our teachers are delivering the curriculum. They are working with social emotional needs. They are guiding our students and navigating them through a system that wasn't built for most of them. This is a skill. Teaching is a skill. I don't know if you get that skill just by having a bachelor's degree. I don't know that. I know that I went to school to become a teacher. I know that I have a bachelor's degree. And if you ask me to be a doctor, I would tell you I don't have the skill to do that. Teaching is a skill. I think we need substitutes. I 100% do think we need substitutes, but I want you to be clear on what you're requiring of the substitutes and be clear with the language. A substitute teacher, there's an expectation that teaching is being done. If it's not, you're just asking for a warm body to make sure that there's no chaos in the classroom. These kids deserve an education, which means the deliverance of curriculum, which means they deserve to be able to ask questions and have those questions answered in the navigation process to be done correctly. I'm not against hiring subs. I think you should go out there and you should hire and hire and hire. I'm just cautioning everyone to be careful about what they think that as soon as we get 100 subs that we solve the problem. We haven't solved the problem. We need to ensure that our schools stay open by making sure the safety's in place so our teachers can stay in the classrooms. Yes, we have teachers. We've had a teacher shortage. That is accurate. We've had a teacher shortage, but we're exacerbating the problem when we don't have clear policy and procedures in for safety. That's what we're doing. And we have to be clear about that. So again, I don't think we should not hire subs. I think we should be clear and transparent on what our expectations for those substitutes to do and to be to our children. We just have to be clear. I also heard Mr. Phillips, I don't know if you can speak to this, Ryan Phillips, I don't know if you can speak to this, but there's been people who are saying they cannot go through the process because they don't have their SAT scores. I've heard that from several community members. So if that's a problem or a barrier, or Dr. Hurst, if that's something that we can look into, because I've heard it from several community members, I would appreciate that to try to figure out if we're creating barriers to this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Smith-Folds. And to myself, great presentation. And as we continue to push forward and improving in all of our areas, and we just stay the course. Great presentation. Thank you. Now we're on to the action items. And we're going to E. E3. We're dealing with the vaccine mandate enforcement date and extension. Okay, board, we are in E3.
Thank you very much, Board President, and the board and the public listening. We wanted to share with you on September the 30th last year, our board adopted a resolution requiring that all eligible students age 12 and older submit proof of a COVID-19 vaccination to continue in-school attendance. The original enforcement date for the resolution was this past January the 3rd, 2022. At that time, previous data showed that 4,720 of our students eligible to be vaccinated were fully vaccinated. And then we had parents of 50 students indicated they would not vaccinate, and then the remaining 7,251 of eligible students were unvaccinated based on the data at that time. With insufficient data from parents on how many plan to have their eligible child vaccinated, and based on this, the board did approve the extension of the enforcement date to February the 18th, which is right around the corner. That's 16 days from today's date. In looking at the current data, we have roughly 59% showing that's fully vaccinated or partially vaccinated or interested in getting a vaccination, which leaves roughly right around 41% that we don't know the vaccination status. Does not mean that they're unvaccinated. It just simply means it's not recorded and we do not know. We also know that other data that's out there says that it's a higher number than what we are reporting, 59%. The other data that we've heard is right around 97%, either vaccinated or partially vaccinated. The dilemma for our district and staff is even considering those numbers at 97%, that leaves about 3% that we're not sure of that's not vaccinated. And when you look at the number of students who are between the age of 12 and older, that's roughly 12,000 students. 3% would put us right at 360 students that are potentially not vaccinated. So what we're doing is coming to the school board with 16 days from the enforcement date. We are recommending that we extend the mandate, and we would like to amend the date that's in the agenda. In the agenda, we have a recommendation of August 16th, which aligns to the first day of school. In speaking with staff, that would be inappropriate starting the first day of school and following through on vaccination status. There was conversation of aligning the date to the governor's date, which is around July the 1st. And speaking with staff, we also felt that this is right around our summer school and extended school year for our special needs students. So we wanted to modify the extension date, the enforcement date, to August the 30th, 2022, which gives us time also, if the legislators do approve the COVID-19 vaccination, then we can look into the care system and actually see our students who are vaccinated. So with this in mind, we're asking the board to consider the recommendation to extend the enforcement date to July the 30th, 2022. Thank you. I would like to say to Mr. President, we are expecting questions around this from the board, and our staff are prepped to answer certain questions depending upon what you ask.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hurst. Now we go to clarified questions, and starting with Trustee Leon.
No questions.
Trustee Flores.
Yeah, I have a question. I know that you mentioned that there's 3% of students that we don't know if they're vaccinated or not. What have we done for them to like upload, to make sure that they have been uploading that information? Because I've noticed that just this week, all of a sudden now they're like in classes, they're like, make sure you upload it, make sure you upload it. But these past few months, nobody has even told us to upload things. So it's like, of course, there's no information. Of course, there's a lot of people not turning in the things because they're not receiving help. They don't know that they're supposed to be doing that. So what have we been doing to inform these people?
Thank you so much, Trustee Flores. I just wanted to clarify first, the data that I shared, the 97%, that's not our data. We did receive that from another source. So when we talk about 3%, which is roughly around 300 students that could potentially be not vaccinated, that's not our data. So when you look at our data, we have that we know right around 59% of our students who are either partially vaccinated or fully vaccinated. So I just wanted to clarify that first, and I'm going to allow our Director of Communications to talk about some of our marketing strategies and what we have been doing to get everyone to turn in their vaccination status.
Thank you, Dr. Hurst and Board of Trustees. So we have done extensive vaccination mandate outreach since since the board announced this decision. We have sent out multiple community messages starting around when the mandate was first introduced. As the enforcement dates got closer, we adjusted our strategy to more focused communication to people that had not uploaded their cards. So, for example, we sent out these cards, right, to all families who had yet to upload their card. These cards went out during winter break, and on there's a QR code where it links directly to the portal for a family to upload their card. So that's one example that we did. We provided schools with similar flyers that they could have on campus, where again, you can link to this. We link to the secure portal with the QR code, so it's easily scannable on a smartphone. We emailed all students through their student email account with specific instructions on how to upload their card and how to do so from their Chromebook, knowing that that's how students can easily access that portal. We have directions on our website on how to upload the vaccination card, and we also have provided answers to questions about the vaccine to help dispel any misinformation. We also have had spokespeople for our district. The previous student trustees actually both gave some first-person accounts on why they chose to get vaccinated, which we shared with the community and had some great responses. We've also partnered with community organizations and our own folks within our district to provide them with resources to share. We developed toolkits that United Teachers Richmond helped share with their teachers. Again, this is all about helping make it easier for people in our community, especially students, to be able to upload their vaccination cards. One last thing I'll add is that in terms of the individual outreach, we were sending robocalls to the list of families that we had with students who had yet to upload their card. We're sending out those 3 times a week during the winter, and also our SCOWs were also have targeted list of families that they're following up with to make sure that they are uploading their vaccination cards. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we'll move to Trustee Phillips.
I don't have any questions.
All right. Trustee Clerk Gonzalez-Hoy.
Thank you, President Christian. Dr. Hurst, some of the data that we got from the county shows that, actually, let me backtrack. Comparing our data to the county, do you feel like it's a reporting issue or it's a vaccination issue?
It would seem to be a reporting issue and not a vaccination issue. I think that the one conversation that we had as staff is really identifying our particular students. So looking at the county's data, it breaks it down by city and students, but are all those students ours is one of the questions that our staff had. So the best scenario, if we take the data at face value, yes, they're all our students. It's about 3% that's not vaccinated, which means it is a reporting issue for us.
Thank you. I was wondering if you could talk about 2 plans. If the board decides not to extend the deadline, what are we going to do to increase our reporting in the next 2 weeks at the sites. If we extend the deadline, what are we also doing to increase the reporting, but in 6 months?
So we talked about this as the staff, and that's one of the questions I had given to our Director of Communications. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Ryan Phillips.
Thank you, Dr. Hurst, and thank you, Board of Trustees. I failed to mention previously the success we had with a raffle. We conducted a raffle for all cards who were uploaded by a certain date. We did 2 raffles in the fall. And it's anecdotal, but we did see a significant spike in cards that were submitted right before both of those deadlines. So we partnered with our Ed Fund and our unions to collect some gift cards and some other great tech prizes that were great to advertise. Our team has distributed the majority of these cards to schools where people have been very excited to receive them. So we've got some great photos to share as well. So we're prepared to launch another of those raffles next week. We have basically all that we need to do that. We're also looking at how we could survey our students more to understand where there's more need for them to upload their cards, so we can understand that better to continue to do the more targeted outreach. Thank you.
I also think that vaccination clinics tie into that. So I know that Larisha was given that question, so I'm gonna let Larisha talk about the work that we're gonna be doing in that area.
We are continuing to partner with the county for our vaccine clinics. All of our vaccine clinics are actually posted on our district website, so we're keeping that updated so families can have access to that. We actually just received another email today from another organization to partner with them as well to offer another vaccine clinic. So we are continuing, and that's our goal, to continue to partner with the county to have vaccine clinics. And we also have a volunteers, in which this is not necessarily about the vaccine clinic, but we're really using our scouts at schools to just have engage parents in conversations around ensuring that they're uploading their cards, and also making sure they know how important this is, and also informing them on our vaccine clinics as well. So we're really trying to engage with our scouts to make sure that they have all the information that's accurate as well. We just had a meeting, Ms. Blake had a meeting with them on Friday. And this is part of that outreach as well, to ensure that our families do have this information.
Thank you. I guess my next question would be for Mr. Ryan Phillips. Have we done outreach days at each of the secondary sites where, Monday is going to be Kennedy's outreach day, and we're going to send staff to promote the vaccine? Have we done things like that, or have we just mainly pushed through social media and some of the other things that we have done?
The communications team hasn't led any specific outreach for school sites, but we do appreciate the idea. Thank you.
Thank you. And my next one, I think, would be for Dr. Hurst. This is only my last question, President Christian. For the however many students who end up not reporting or who end up not vaccinating, what is the option that they'll have as of February 16th if we were not to extend the deadline?
Well, I think that's a really good question. I think that's why we've been watching the data, doing the best we could to market as well. That's the really big question that we have struggled with, even when we came to the board the last time. Our option right now is the Virtual Academy independent study. And I think we've heard those numbers in the past, where we are in the wait list. And we don't have the capacity for even 360, which is why I mentioned that number. Even if you look at the best scenario at 97% vaccinated, leaving 3% unvaccinated, that's still a number that we would have to grapple with as a staff. So we don't have that option where they would go, what we would do for them, which is really why we're coming to the board. I hear you loud and clear. The marketing strategy has to be there. So that's work that we have to do as a team. So what we do between now, if the board approves it, between now and July the 30th is going to be important. The best case scenario is maybe there is only 360, so that makes our job easier, just focusing on those 360 students. I think one of the benefits is July the 1st, as I shared, if it is approved by the legislators, then we can go into the care system and actually see our students and where they are in their vaccination status.
Thank you, Dr. Hurst. That's it, President Christian. Just comments.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Trustee Reckler.
Thank you. So my first question is a request around language. And I'm asking pretty please, until this becomes a non-issue, if the district can use the language that they use when they talk about this issue and change it from being unvaccinated to have not uploaded proof of vaccination status. Is that possible? And can somebody commit to answering that and saying yes, that you can do that?
Yes, we can do that. All the team is here. We're all listening.
Okay, I'll come back to it in comments about why it's important. The next question that I have is, can you say with real honesty that the wait list is scrubbed and that you're sure that there's no dead weight in there or no phantom students, and that it is clean and aligned and that it does align with reality?
So every week, Mr. Trujillo, who is over enrollment currently, he runs the numbers for me for Vista Virtual. He and his team are actually the ones who are calling parents from the wait list as well to ensure that parents are in fact still interested in Virtual Academy. And so currently there are, as of today, there are, sorry, give me a second. There are on the wait list 212 students currently, and we currently have 323 enrolled. We also have a couple of other categories, but essentially Mr. Trujillo runs this report for me every week, which actually looks at students who are SPED students, out of district students who are also requesting Vista Virtual, and also students, the enrolled students, some students who have requested who have home and hospital. And then we also look at students who move from Vista Virtual to Vista Independent Study. So in total, there's been over 1,000 applications or requests for Vista Virtual. So yes, I would say that the numbers are accurate. And this is work that he does every week, that we review every week. And the goal is to continue enrolling students that are on the wait list. And the numbers are higher than what they have been in the past. We're above 300 now in enrollment.
Okay, thank you. So that is being called all the time and people feel good, like there is outreach and that this is really an accurate, there's no dead, there's no ghost students on it, there's no.
I mean, we also added another clerical staff to Vista Virtual just to ensure that we're also getting parents off the wait list as quick as possible. It's not also just getting students and parents off the wait list, it's also the HR aspect of ensuring that we have enough teachers for those positions. So we can't move students unless we actually have the teaching force to go to Vista Virtual. But when we do call parents, parents are still excited, still want to attend. It's a process.
Okay, I want to move to July timeframe. If this moves to July 30th, how are you going to ensure that in July you've got the capacity and that you're well planned to handle what's coming into that virtual space?
The question was, how will we ensure that we are ready for the number of students that will be coming into the virtual space?
Correct.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to see this happen next year.
Mhm. I would say we have a better indication. I think one of the challenges this year was that Vista Virtual was enrolled with, it was, one, there was not a budget. It was only allocated 3 teachers and 75 students, and the numbers were overwhelmingly higher than that. So that was part of the challenge to begin with. I think going into next school year, we already know the number of students that are still on the wait list. I think one of the things that we need to do is ensure that during the summer, we're reaching out to those families to see if they are still interested in coming back. And then also with the mandate, making sure that we are doing a strong hiring push to get teachers into Vista Virtual. And so I think it's just a partnership between Ed Services and HR to make sure that we're aligned and on the same page and have the correct staffing for the number of students that may be coming to us for next school year.
Okay, and finally to Dr. Hurst, I guess we have a couple of weeks left. What does the Marshall Plan look like? If you could have anything you wanted to pull this off, what would you need to pull it off?
Not being funny, but staff support would be helpful. Recruiting or probably working with Martine as well for volunteers. Helping Ryan to come up with another robust strategy. I think also we talked about surveying students, so having more people on board to help Ryan to articulate a clear plan and marketing strategy. I think staff is the biggest need right now, support.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, Trustee Smith-Fall.
How many people are on the recruitment team now?
Mr. Wadenpaugh, can you answer that, please? How many people are on our recruitment team?
For recruiting for teachers for the coming school year? Is that the question?
Yeah, we just heard recruitment team, right? So how many people are on the recruitment team in HR to go out and recruit this number of teachers, this number of staff that's needed? How many people are on that recruitment team?
So we just began those conversations last week. And so that team is being put together with representatives from the various departments as well. We'll have to report back to you, the board.
Okay, because recruitment is an HR issue, correct?
Yes.
So how many people in HR now currently do the recruiting for the district?
There is one coordinator, but I believe the whole HR team contributes to recruitment during the high hiring season, which we're about to enter into. Our conversations today specifically were about what have we done in recruitment that's worked? What have we done that we don't ever want to do again? And what are some new ideas or suggestions so that we can secure the most qualified educators and support staff?
Thank you. Ms. Martin, the 212 students that are on the wait list now, those 212 students are still enrolled in their primary home school, correct? Their local schools would be better because not homeschool, but they're local schools. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
And then currently we have 58 students that have said they will not vax. Is that correct? They will not be vaccinated. Is that correct?
Are you speaking about from Vista Virtual or?
No, ma'am.
Oh,
When
okay.
we are looking at the data that the district compiles as of January 31st, it said that 58 students have said they will not be vaccinated. Is that accurate? Am I reading the numbers correct?
I believe that is correct. I do not have that in front of me currently. I believe that is correct. And that has been from a student, parent checking on the form, the Informed K-12 form, that they will not be vaccinated. That is correct.
In 16 days, will we have a placement for them at Vista?
In 16 days, no, we will not.
Thank you. And then are the uploads to vaccination, are any of this uploading being put on secretaries to do? Our site secretaries, or is it all just being done through Power School? Students and parents are just to upload through Power School. Or are they taking cards in and secretaries are to upload them? What does that look like?
I think it varies from school to school. I know for a fact that I've talked to principals who said their secretaries have helped parents upload, especially if the technology aspect of it is too difficult or parents are saying they're having trouble uploading. So secretaries are supporting. I know for the high school students, they discussed having and doing it during homeroom to ensure that students knew. So if they bought their Vax card, they would actually give them time during homeroom or advisory to actually upload themselves. Because many of our high school students can actually do that themselves. And then we also, parents can just do it themselves as well. So those have been the options. It has not necessarily been put on secretaries to do, but if a parent comes to them and says they need support, they are supporting with that, and our SCOWs as well.
Thank you for that. Can you give me a little bit of a timeline summary of what's been done from September the 30th to our first January the 3rd, right? And then now to February the 18th. And what I mean by that is, what have we done as a district to determine a plan, right? An implementation plan.
When you say implementation plan, are you speaking about what we've done to really get students vaccination status uploaded, or another type of plan?
I think I'm speaking to mainly about when we hit these deadlines, right? Are we ready? Like, we were not ready January the 3rd, right? I think I'm hearing from you that we're not ready on February the 18th. And then how are we going to be ready? Specifically, how are we going to be ready on an extended deadline of July?
So I would say, when it comes to independent study or what we're doing with the students, that has always been a tough question. We don't have an option there. So we're left with our marketing strategies and really recruiting. And what I talked about is really making that a more robust team to help Ryan out, to really focus on individual students. So marketing is our best strategy at this point, because there are no options right now other than the independent study or virtual option.
And when you say, this is my last question, doctors, when you say helping Mr. Ryan Phillips out by kind of creating a team of outreach, right? A team of people who are going to do outreach. Are these people who currently already have tasks that they're doing, or are these volunteers that you're going to try to bring in to help? Are these SCOWs that are already tasked with doing things? Who are these people?
As I think about the number of students, whether it's 360 or if it's in the thousands of students, I don't think a team of 4 could do that by themselves and do a really good job, which is really kind of the question that's being asked. So it does need to be a team approach. It needs to be a larger team. So what I said earlier is, we have someone that does outreach, community outreach, and manages our volunteers. I think there needs to be a partnership with Martine Blake and with our communications team, and seeing how we can utilize those individuals to build a stronger team to reach out to these students, whether it's 360 or in the thousands of students. So we need literally more bodies to help out in finding out who is the student that's unvaccinated and tracking them down and sending out the message. And I think we're doing a really good job, and our director of communications, he's articulated a plan. I just think we need help in that area. So working with Martine, I think, is a strategy.
Thank you, President Christian. Those are all of my questions. I just have comments.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Smith-Fall. And I don't have any clarifying questions. And now what we will do, I'll make a motion to extend the vaccine date to July the 30th, 2022.
I will second your motion, good sir.
All right. It's been moved and it's been second. And now we will.
President Christian,
Go ahead.
I would like to make a substitute motion that we extend the deadline to March 1st.
You said March 1st?
Yeah. But I need a second, so I might die if I don't get a second.
I will second the motion for March 1st.
All right. All right, so any comments on the second motion?
Just for clarification, can you repeat the second motion?
Yes, go ahead.
President Christian, may I clarify the motion?
Yes.
It's to, Trustee Leong, the motion is to extend the deadline to March 1st, 2022.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
Are we beginning comment, Trustee Christian?
Yes.
All right. So my comment is quite brief. I wish for the district to continue their efforts to pursuing reporting of vaccinations. I agree with Trustee Gonzalez-Oy and that the question still stands. How are we going to continue getting students to report their status? Does having more raffles or sending out responsive emails help the cause? I believe the students who are already vaccinated have no reason to not report their status. If this mandate was truly vital, district would pursue this and not keep pushing back the deadline to such long periods. Students that are not yet vaccinated should be contacted individually, not by robocalls, but by mail, direct phone calls, or even direct conversation with parents. If you're talking about a quote unquote mandate, you cannot continue to decrease the authority of said mandate. Just on a side example, Contra Costa College has mandated students be vaccinated since November 1st, 2021. If a student did not report their status by said date without registering for an exemption or are in the process of said requesting an exemption, that student would be dropped to the resident school and from the Contra Costa College program effective immediately. This long of a delay of mandate to possibly July from January 3rd, 2022 will only delay action for returning back to a sense of normalcy. I urge the district to direct more hands and minds to conduct extensive research onto students who have yet to report their vaccination statuses. A mandate should be taken seriously, and pushing back the mandate will only take the responsibility out of students and parents and embarrass the authority of our board. Should continue to assist and reach out to these students who are not yet vaccinated and allow them to complete their process. We should not continue allowing this gray zone to exist. Thank you very much, President Christian.
All right, thank you. Trustee Flores?
Yes. I think just giving the COVID, the vaccine mandate an extension just is not even a good idea. Only if you guys are planning to give an extension, then COVID testing should be mandatory. to make students feel a lot more safer, because I mean, if there's no students getting vaccinated and we're just gonna allow that to keep extending, we're just gonna allow that to happen, then I just think that COVID testing should be mandatory now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we go to Trustee Phillips.
I have a question, and the question is not for really anyone to answer. It's a question for people to ponder on. And the question is, when are we going to start listening to the staff? The only person sitting up here on this dais with an administrator's credential is Dr. Hurst. The only person sitting up here on this dais who's ever been a principal is Dr. Hurst. The only person sitting up here who's ever been a member of a cabinet is Dr. Hurst. But every time it seems like Dr. Hurst says we should do something, or he wants to do something, or he advises us to do something, people who, yes, were elected, yes, who have been entrusted to oversee, step in and try to tell this man how to do his job, a job which none of us, in all honesty, are even remotely qualified to do. Does that mean that we should not be trustees? No, it doesn't mean that. But what it does mean is if we hire a superintendent and we believe that he is highly qualified, and I know I believe that, and I've heard everybody up here say they believe that, it means if we do that, and if we really believe that, then we need to actually follow his advice. Me personally, I'm a lawyer. When people come to my office who didn't go to law school, who don't have a bar card, and then proceed to tell me what the law is or how to navigate the law, it gets on my nerves a little bit. I'm only saying a little bit because I don't want people to get mad at me. But quite frankly, it gets under my skin. But you want your clients and you kind of grin and bear it. And that's what Dr. Hurst has to do every day with us, is just grin and bear it while we tell him how to do his job. So look, do I believe in a vaccine mandate? I do. But am I the one that's going to have to deal with the ramifications of not following his advice? No. Am I the one that's going to have to figure it out by not following? No. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with people who are in leadership roles, sometimes just following. We don't have to buck every time he says something. So whether it's March 31st, whether it's July 1st, whether it's August 1st, I'm gonna vote for what he said, because we are paying this man to give us advice and he is good at what he does. Those are my comments. I will be voting no, because I'm gonna vote for Dr. Hurst's motion, or what he asked for, which is the motion made by Trustee President Christian, if I have that opportunity.
All right, thank you. And next we go to Clerk Gonzalez-Hoy.
Thank you, President Christian. I think that our role is one of accountability and one of ensuring that we're listening to all the voices. And what I'm hearing from students and from staff and from majority of families is that they want to see this happen. And I know we have a capacity issue, which is why Dr. Hurst, in my opinion, we're giving you another month to figure out how to make this happen. If this goes through, I think that we have to have more outreach on the secondary sites. We heard from one of our student trustees today that it was our first time hearing about this yesterday. So I think that we have to listen to what's actually happening at the site. I think that our staff is working incredibly hard to make this happen. And I think that we always have to listen and pivot, like I've mentioned at the last board meeting, to the feedback of those actually doing the work at the schools. So days of outreach at the secondary sites, Mr. Ryan Phillips, I would love to see something like that. I would also love to see if HR can start a drive to understand who would like to transfer to virtual school if we can from our current staff to make this happen for those who decide not to report or those who decide to make their own choices. I do think that there is a reporting issue. We have a data issue, like Dr. Hurst said. We have to figure out how to get past that. But I agree with our student trustees. I think that if we don't put an end, we're just going to continue to push it. I mean, I'm pushing it tonight, but that's because I'm trying to acknowledge that staff needs to do this work in a month to let families know that they're going to be given the option of going to the virtual school. But this is one of the biggest mitigating strategies to ensure that our community is safe. I 100% believe in the vaccine. And I do believe that we have to have it in place and put an end, which is why I'm just pushing it for 2 additional weeks. If the motion dies and we go back to the original, I'll most likely just vote no, because I think that we have to make this happen now. Okay, that's it. President Christian, back to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Trustee Reckler.
Thank you. I do have a couple of comments. So the first one is thank you, and I really hope that we can start referring to this as not having uploaded proof of vaccination status. And the reason why this is so important to me is that we're not honoring all of the hard work that everybody in this community has done to get our students vaccinated. And it's not just in this room, it's all of the principals, it's all of the vaccination clinics, it's county health, it's prioritizing teachers for vaccines. I mean, this community rose and vaccinated anything that moved. There was clinic everywhere, and it shows in our data. And so this is real data from November. Dr. Dalton did a lot of work on data, but some of it is her estimates. I'm sure they're extremely good estimates, but our vaccination rates, this is just fully vaccinated as of November 2nd. El Cerrito, this is 12 and above, El Cerrito, 95%, Kensington, 99.5%, West Richmond, 88%, El Sprante, 84%, East Richmond, 89%, Richmond Annex, 89%, San Pablo to Tower Hills, 82%, Pinole, 86%, and Hercules, 88%. Once again, that's just fully vaxxed. That doesn't even include the partials. And the reason why it really hurts me is because I heard on KQED that our vaccination rate was 50% because they probably picked up some errant thing that we had out there and it wasn't accurate. So to celebrate the good work, the exceptional work that has been done in this community by all parties, I think that's really important. So I hope that you can at least do that. The next thing that I wanted to touch on is that I'm doing this for students, and I'm doing it for students because I've talked to students. And if you talk to students who are in our classrooms, much like our student trustees, they're telling you, I don't feel safe. And I don't feel safe because I'm sitting in a room with people and I don't know who's vaccinated. And I don't want to get it and I don't want to give it to them. Or even worse, I do know who's unvaccinated and I don't want to be anywhere near them because I don't want to get it and I don't want to give it to them. So this is a real student fear. We have to realize that and we have to address it. And I think if we don't throw the hammer down, we're never going to find out how close we can come. And so tonight, I want to throw the hammer down and see how close we can come. I also, it's well known that the virtual school was not planned properly. There were a number of reasons for that. The legislature threw a hot potato right at the last minute, saying that this is the only way you can give independent, virtual instruction. It wasn't a perfect launch, but had this board been allowed to vet this way back, like last year at this time, I bet we would have gotten a much better result, because I would have told you that it was easily 500 to 750 students. There's pent-up demand. This could be something that would bring families to this district. This is a new opportunity, and it was, it wasn't a great launch for a variety of reasons. I'm not blaming anybody. It's not that. But to please think proactively for next year about how big this could possibly be. This could be huge. You're telling me 1,000 students. That's huge. That's huge. So think big and put the plan together to make it really happen, all the way from textbooks and materials clear through to marketing to other districts. And I thank you for your work. This is not easy. I'm sure people are hating me, but we're just never going to know how close we come unless we take definitive action. Thank you.
All right, thank you. As we go to Trustee Smith-Fall.
I think this is a needed conversation. I think it's a conversation that happened too late. I think that it is a conversation to where we are having selective listening, because if we wanted to hear from staff and teachers and students and community members, then we wouldn't have taken away standing reports. If we wanted to hear from people, we would have offered the opportunity for them to speak. We would have been able to give them the space to actually come and have a conversation with us. We would have had a special meeting about the vaccine itself and hear from people to give us their point of view. I think that we all say we talk to students. We hear from 2 of our students, but this is a huge district. This is a huge district. And I think we need to make the opportunity to hear from everybody. I think, Dr. Hurst, one of the issues that I have is we're stuck on if we extend it or not, but we're not still able to answer the questions. What do we do? 58 kids, what do we do? 300 plus kids, what do we do? 1,000 kids, what do we do? I'm at the same exact point that I was at in September the 30th. When I voted no, because no one can answer the questions, what's the plan? What do we do? I know that we have a lot of what we want to do, but what do we do? I honestly, March or July, I'm still not getting the answer to the questions about what happens. How do we educate our students? How do we provide a space for our students when we don't have the bandwidth now? I'm not getting clarity around that. I really value the idea of kind of laying the hammer down, but then I say, what do you do? March 1st, what do we do? If there's 58 kids, March 1st, what do we do? Because we still have 212 on the list. So I'm asking these questions because I really want us to get clarity around the issue, because I think people deserve to know what happens next. I think people deserve to know so they can really make some choices around what they are going to do for their children. In all honesty, I don't know how to vote on this because, again, I don't think that we've had enough community input around it. I think it's just conversations in silos. And I don't like the muddying of the water to say that if we disagree, then we're not good leaders because we're not following. I just don't believe that to be accurate. I believe that we're put in this position. We were elected in this position to ask questions. We were elected in this position to take the voices of the community to the board and to set policy. Dr. Hurst, I value your recommendation, but your recommendation is not a directive for me to say yes all the time. And I think that you appreciate questions, in my opinion. I think that that's what we are called to do, is to ask and then make our decisions based on that information that we're given, but we make informative decisions because we ask questions. I just don't want to be shamed into not feeling like I can ask a question or I can go another direction from the superintendent. I don't take anything away from your resume, sir. I don't think that you should take anything away from mine or have other board members take anything away from mine or the students that experience it every single day. They have a point. I don't have to agree with it, but I have to hear it. And I have to make clear concessions to the fact that they are saying it's a safety. But listen, this is the same safety about Richmond not having windows. So you can't be a selective hearer. You can't be like, okay, I'm listening to the kids now because they want a vaccination, but I'm not listening to the same kids telling me that they don't have windows and they're stuffed in a gym 300 plus. If you're going to listen to all of it. Don't have a selective hearing process. Hear all of it. Hear the teachers that are saying we feel safe if our students are vaccinated, and hear those same teachers saying we need to have ventilation in every single classroom. Hear the staff saying we support the mandate, but hear that same staff saying, I can't clean 30 classrooms by myself. I'm one custodian. Hear it all. Hear all of it. And let's make policy based on everything we hear, not just some of it, but all of it. I would like to hear more about what Contra Costa College does when they're talking about exceptions or exemptions or whatever that full conversation is. I would like to see what other districts are doing. But again, these are the same questions I had back in September. Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy, I appreciate you all. Your full title. Trustee Clerk Gonzalez-Hoy, I appreciate you always coming to the table with conversation, because we're having a conversation about what does it look like, extending it 2.5 weeks or so. We need to have that conversation. And Dr. Hurst, I need you to say March works or March is not going to work. We still don't have the bandwidth. But we need to have a conversation about it. And we don't ever need to feel like any one of us is being shut down from asking questions. Thank you. That's it. Trustee President Christian, I'm complete.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Smith-Folds. And I just wanted to say, for me, this is serious and we have to really look at it. Whatever we do, the decision we make, this is serious. And we got to just make sure we push forward and do the right thing. So that's all I have. Dr. Hurst.
Thank you so much, Board President. Just want to respond and thank you, Trustee Smith-Folds, for even sharing the transparency and flexibility, even for me as the superintendent, to engage in this conversation and dialogue with all of you. So I want to just share with you and just share with the board that we just have to be very careful as we are sharing something different from the recommendation. And I say that because, we use this term boots on the ground. We are boots on the ground and we're doing the work and we're leading the work as well. One of the things I will share with you is I was asked twice by 2 different board members about the need. And you heard me say twice, it was staff, that we need staff. And I've made it very clear since I've been here, across the system, we have staffing shortages in every level of the organization. And as I think about the recommendation, here's the warning that I want to share with the board, is that you're asking for a task that's, I wouldn't say impossible, but it's not realistic. So when you ask us, when today is the 2nd, and you're asking us to turn around, whether it's 360 students or that 1,000 or maybe even more students, to come up with an individualized plan to address those students, identify whether they're vaccinated or not, and to just get it done, it's unrealistic. And I appreciate you saying that I can engage in this conversation, because I need to caution the board on that piece, that this is unrealistic. If this was the only thing that we were doing in our district and diverting all of our resources to finding either those 360 students in less than 1 month time, or over 1,000 students in 1 month time, sure, we could do it. But that's not the only thing that we have to do in this district. And we all know that. We have conversations that we have not engaged in yet about teaching and learning. I've already shared about the equity audit. I've already shared about starting the strategic planning process. But every time we have conversations like this, then it pushes everything back. And you have to know that. So it's my responsibility and my job to warn the board and to caution you. We gave a recommendation. We stick by that recommendation. You're giving us an impossible task. If you're asking us to do it by March the 1st and it's voted upon, we're going to divert everything to that. But I'm letting you know, the caution is something's going to be left undone. Thank you.
Thank you. And do we vote? Okay. So we will vote. Go ahead.
If I can, I would like to make one more comment, but I know I want to do it in order. So I don't want to just jump in.
Okay. All right, we start with the student trustees. Trustee Leon.
Can you clarify, is this a comment or?
Let's take to the vote. All right, we're going to the vote. Trustee Leon,
I abstain from the vote.
Trustee Flores,
Abstain.
Trustee Phillips,
Can I make the comment now, or I'm not allowed to make a comment? It's up to you.
oh, we went to the vote, but
Okay. I vote no.
okay. Trustee Clerk Gonzalez-Hoy,
President Christian, I vote yes.
okay. Trustee Reckler,
Once again, just to clarify, this is for the March, correct? This is the stacking motion of March.
yes.
Reckler, yes.
All right, thank you. And Trustee Smith, Bo,
The reason I'm voting the way I'm voting is because I just don't think they're going to do it. I think we'll have to come back again, Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy. I don't think that they have, I mean, they're telling us they don't have the bandwidth to do it. And my vote is no, but it's not. The reason is because I don't have the answers to the questions. And the reason is they just don't have it in them. like they don't have it in them to complete the task that's set for March. Thank you.
Thank you. And my vote is no. And on the first motion. Okay, and now we will go to the first motion. To vote on the first motion. And that motion was extended date to July 30th, 2022. And so I will go to Trustee Leon.
I'm gonna vote no solely because I believe that the date is pushed back to too extended of a period, and the motion can always be reconsidered afterward if it is at a shorter point in time. Thank you very much. The vote is Trustee Leon, no.
Right, thank you. And Trustee Flores.
Flores, no.
All right, thank you. Trustee Phillip.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Clerk Gonzalez Hoy.
Gonzalez Hoy, no.
All right. No. Okay. Next is Trustee Reckler.
Reckler, no.
Thank you. And next we have Trustee Smith Fall.
President Christian, is there a way to come back to me, or can I just take a few minutes? What's your preference? Take a few minutes or come back to me. What's your preference?
Okay. All right. I'll go to myself and I vote yes.
It almost feels like an impossible situation to be in. It almost feels like an impossible situation to be in, and I'm never. It's rare that I'm indecisive, but I don't have any answers. Like I just don't have answers if we will be able to make it in July. I don't have answers. Well, I was told we can't make it in March. Does that mean we're able to make it in April? Would we be able to make it in May? Do we have numbers if it goes down? Because how many graduating seniors do we have? Because that is an impact number. If the seniors are graduating, and how many kids are then turning 12 and above? I don't have any information. I just don't feel like I can make a decision that would allow me to go back to the community with answers. And I think that that's very important for me to do, is to be able to go back to the community with answers. I abstain.
Trustee Phillips.
I would like to ask a question, and then depending on the question, I would like to make a motion, a different motion. Is that okay?
Okay.
The
Okay. Let me announce that the vote fails. So we move it to the next phase. Okay.
can I?
Yes.
Okay. What I just heard, and I'm summarizing to make sure I understand, what I just heard is our superintendent tell us that they don't have the capacity, the bandwidth to get this done by March 1st. So my question is, Dr. Hurst, if you don't have the capacity to get this done by March 1st, by us not extending this at all, don't you have even less time to get this done?
what I was trying to get the board to understand is this is not our only task. And if it was, then we could divert all attention there. What I have shared is that we don't have all the resources to get this turned around in less than 30 days. If we were to divert all of our attention to just this.
So the motion that I would, that might be a sign to be quiet. The motion that I would like to make, or that I am making, is that we give Dr. Hurst the discretion to decide what the date is. That is the motion that I am making.
Go ahead.
President Christian, I would like to make a motion that we extend the deadline to April 1st.
Point of order.
Go ahead.
Did we not wait for enough for trustee Phillips' motion to get a second?
So,
Yeah, I can wait to make my motion if anyone wants to second trustee Phillips' motion.
yeah. So, so trustee Phillips made a motion. And is it second?
Reckler will second Phillips' motion to leave the decision to the superintendent's discretion.
Okay. Okay. Is there a motion for the April 1st? Is there a second for April the 1st?
I second April the 1st.
Okay, it's been moved by Clerk Gonzalez Hoy, second by trustee Smith-Fall.
For point of order,
Go
who
ahead.
actually, I don't know that that motion was actually made.
President Christian, I was wondering if we could entertain a very quick recess. A 5-minute recess.
5-minute recess?
Can I make a motion that we recess for 5 minutes?
Yes, we can,
I'll second your motion.
Thank you.
5 minutes recess.
President Christian, does it need a vote, sir?
Yes. Okay. All right, we'll have a 5-minute recess and we'll start out with the student trustees and then with trustee Leon,
Leon, yes to the recess.
trustee Flores,
Flores, yes.
all right, trustee Phillips,
Yes, sir.
all right, Clerk Gonzalez Hoy,
Yes.
Reckler, yes.
trustee Reckler, and trustee Smith-Fall,
Smith folds yes to the 5-minute recess.
and myself, yes. The motion passes. And we're on a 5-minute recess. Call the meeting back to order. And Clerk Gonzalez Hoy.
Thank you, President Christian. I would like to make a substitute motion that we table this conversation to the next board meeting and task the superintendent to bring us a new timeline with a plan of implementation after he has been able to talk to staff and after he heard our feedback.
I second that.
All right, it's been moved by Clerk Gonzalez Hoy, second by trustee Smith-Fall. we go to the vote. The vote is to table. Go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
And this question is to the superintendent. Considering that this does not change the existing timeline that we're on, how do you feel about this? How does it affect our current situation?
I think what I would want to do is come back with the board and just share detailed everything, one, that the staff is working on operationally, just so everyone can have a clear picture of the tasks that are on our plate. So I think that needs to happen as well. So when I am speaking about, what's really realistic, I think everyone just needs to have a clear picture of what's happening in the district and the things that we're working on, and then what we can realistically do as well. I think I hear the board's feedback, or certain members of the board's feedback loud and clear. But I also need to be able to sit down with the team and share with them, here's what we're working on already. Here's the expectations to the end of the year. We know we have the strategic planning process. We know we have negotiations. There's also a number of other things. So how do we look at the vaccine mandate and what's really realistic? So we need to be able to have those kind of conversations and then come back to the board about what's realistic. What can we do?
So in this proposal, would you, when you come back, in addition to laying out more context for us and giving us a plan, would you also be giving us a new time to vote on or a date to vote on when you come back?
Yes, sir. I think that's certainly my thoughts right now. But again, I'm asking for the flexibility to talk with teams so we could talk about, what's realistic. And it may change. So what we're saying, but it's based on the conversation that I have with the team and looking at everything else that the district is doing and staff are doing as well.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Reckler.
Yes, hi, I'd like to ask Trustee Clerk Gonzalez-Hoy for a friendly amendment, which is, I think we need to suspend the current date, right? Because the next board meeting will come after that.
Yeah. I apologize, Trustee Reckler and board. I left out one part of the motion in my head, which was, and Trustee Smith Foltz, if you could hear this part, if you agree on your second, it would be to, okay, I'm gonna repeat it. And if Trustee Smith Foltz agrees, this would be the actual language, that we pause on the timeline until the next board meeting so that we can get a new mandate timeline and implementation plan.
I second that motion.
Okay. So it's been moved by Clerk Gonzalez-Hoy, second by Trustee Smith-Foltz. And now we will go to the vote. Trustee Leon.
Leon, yes.
Trustee Flores.
Flores, yes.
Trustee Phillips.
Yes.
Clerk Gonzalez-Hoy.
Gonzalez-Hoy, yes.
Trustee Reckler.
Reckler, yes.
Trustee Smith-Foltz.
Sorry, Smith votes yes. And Dr. Hurst, I appreciate the understanding that you're going to come back with all of that information, so that I appreciate you coming back with answers. Thank you so very much. Smith votes yes.
All right, and myself, yes. And so the motion passes. And we will come back to it. All right. Now, we will go to item 4, the Williams lawsuit complaint and quarterly report.
Yes.
Okay. So, Dr. Hurst.
So tonight we bring before you the quarterly report for the Williams report for the quarter of October 1st through December 31st, 2021. During that period, we had 5 Williams complaints. All 5 complaints have been resolved. We had 1 complaint that was textbooks and instructional materials, and we had 4 facility complaints for a total of 5. We asked the board to approve the Williams quarterly report.
Okay, thank you. Board, we are now to clarifying questions for E4 for the Williams lawsuit complaint of quarterly report. Are there any clarified questions? Start with Trustee Leon.
Leon, no questions.
Trustee Flores.
No questions.
Trustee Phillips.
Mr. Freeze, I heard 4 facilities complaints, is that correct?
That is correct.
And then the other complaints were what?
Textbooks and instructional materials.
And can you just briefly describe for everyone what those complaints were and what is or is not being done about them?
So I'll let Ms. Martin describe the textbook and instructional material component.
Sorry. The first, the one complaint for Williams was for textbook and instructional materials, Education Code 35186, which was not having access to standards aligned textbooks or instructional materials or state or district adopted textbooks or other required instructional materials to use in class, and specifically things such as pencils, pens, notebooks. A pupil does not have access to textbooks or instructional materials to use at home or after school. This does not require 2 sets of textbook or instructional materials for each pupil. Essentially, there was a complaint that they had not received books, pens, paper, pencils, etc., and the 3rd grade class had not received any type of textbook.
And then I see it says resolved. How was it resolved?
Well, there was a distribution of textbooks on November 17th. So math, ELA, science, history were all delivered to students either at their home or picked up by families. They had a pickup of textbooks and instructional materials. I do want to say that all instructional materials were supplied online. All of the textbooks are online, which is compliant with Ed Code. However, there were parents who did want textbooks that were physically in their hand. And so some of those were on back order, and we were able to get those out to families on November 17th. Also on November 17th, we had a large order of supplies that were delivered, and we gave out pencils, paper, pens that were requested from families as well.
Thank you. And then Mr. Freeze, there's 4 facility complaints. Can you describe what those complaints were? And I see in the chart that those were resolved. So if you could do the same thing that Mrs. Martin did, describe what the complaints were and what was done to resolve them, so everyone knows, that would be great.
Yes, absolutely. So there were 4 complaints for facilities. All 4 complaints were from Richmond High School. We had 3 complaints that were associated with heating issues during the latter part of November and into December. The issues were resolved. The concerns were that the heating in the science building was first overheating, and that problem was resolved. We had problems with the controls. Second complaint was there was not enough heat. And again, we had another failure within the boiler. Over the Christmas break, we had a service company come in. We made changes to the control systems and updated them to current technology. We also serviced the boilers and made repairs to each one of the heater ventilators in each classroom. And so that issue has been resolved. And so that was three of the complaints. I'm sorry, one of the other complaints was the heating within the theater. The theater heating was resolved. There is one classroom that's being used that receives its heating from the theater itself. We have contracted with an outside entity to install an individual heating cooling unit, and that work is currently underway. We're just waiting on materials. So those are the heating issues. The fourth item was a complaint late October. We had a gas smell within the campus. The county health responded to that complaint, as well as Richmond Fire and PG&E. They could find no trace of gas or odors inside the building. It had originated from the outside. So that was resolved and closed, as well as their concerns around the lights on the HEPA filter machines. Again, maintenance was dispatched to check those units. And again, we continue to check them and change the filters as needed. And that item is closed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Freeze. Those are all of my questions, President Christian.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll go to Clerk Gonzalez-Hoy.
Thank you, President Christian. I don't have any questions.
All right, thank you. And we go to Trustee Reckler.
Thank you. I don't have anything.
Thank you. And we go to Trustee Smith-Fall.
So Mr. Freeze, as of January the 21st, 2022, room 209B is still not working at Richmond High School. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. That is the heating unit that is yet to be installed. It does receive its heat from the theater, and the theater is working. It's been a condition of that school since the school was built. But we do have a remedy to resolve that.
Okay, so when we use the word resolved, does that mean it's in the stages of completion or it's complete?
I would say it's in the stages of completion. We have a physical executed contract with a vendor. Materials are ordered and it will be installed and completed. And the resolution was fixing the heat within the theater itself to bring heat back into that area of the building.
And Mr. Freeze, what happens if we don't agree with these findings? Meaning that we don't agree that it's been solved to fidelity or resolved to our liking. What happens next?
I would believe the board would have the right to change whether it's resolved or unresolved, and this report would go under the county in that light, and that's how the county would report it out.
And then once the county reports it out, for example, as unresolved, what then happens? Does it come back to the district for you guys to work on it until it's resolved, and then you bring it back to us? What happens when it goes to the county as unresolved?
I would have to investigate that and get back to you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And I don't have no question. May I, now we have a motion.
I move to accept the report.
Okay, it's been moved by Trustee Phillips. And may I have a second?
I will second the acceptance of the Williams report.
It was second by Trustee Reckler. Are there any comments? And we'll start off with Trustee Leon.
Leon, no comments.
Trustee Flores.
No comment.
Thank you. Trustee Phillips.
No comments, sir.
All right, thank you. Clerk Gonzalez-Hoy.
No comments, thank you.
All right. And Trustee Reckler.
I have nothing, thank you.
Thank you. And Trustee Smith-Fall.
Mr. Freeze, I think I want a more one-on-one tutorial with you about this, because I just have an issue with us saying it's resolved and it's in process. Because if it's in process, I don't know if it's ever going to be resolved or not, or is it going to continually to be in process? Because one of the things you said has been a problem since the building has been in existence, right? So I want to get more education and understanding about how a Williams complaint happens. What's the total finish line end game with the Williams complaint? It comes, it's looked at, it's resolved, it's brought to the board, it goes to the county. What happens if it doesn't get resolved and then goes to the county? Like I would like a whole 360 view of what happens with the Williams complaint. And I'm sure that can happen at another time. Dr. Hurst, if you wouldn't mind setting that something up between Mr. Freeze and I, or at one of our agenda reviews, just having a couple of more minutes to do that, I would appreciate it. I don't feel comfortable with something being in flux and having the title resolved. It's just two different, words matter and language is important. If it's resolved, then it's fixed. If it's in flux, it's not resolved. If it's about to happen, still not resolved. If the work order is in there, still not resolved. So the problem still exists. So for me, that's where I have a pause. And all the Williams complaint that have come forward, I seem to have the same kind of pause in it. Those are all of my comments, President Christian.
All right, thank you, Trustee Smith-Folds. And I don't have any comments. And so now we'll go to the vote. And Trustee Leon?
Leon, yes.
Trustee Flores?
Flores, yes.
Thank you. Trustee Phillips?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Clerk Gonzalez-Hoy?
Gonzalez-Ho abstain.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Reckler?
Reckler, yes.
Trustee Smith-Folds?
Smith-Folds, no, for the previous reasons mentioned.
Okay, and myself, yes. And so it carries. All right, thank you. And now we're going to discussion items and reports. Letter F, public hearing regarding redistricting commission and recommend the recommended map.
Mr. President, we do have Mr. Harold Freeman here, our attorney is here, that's going to be bringing this item forward.
Good evening. I just want to kind of give you a brief overview of what it is that's before you tonight and how we got here. So the district currently has board of trustees that are elected by trustee area, meaning each of you represent a particular area. You all represent the entire district, but you're elected by one particular area. The first time the district went through this process was in your election for 2020. So all of the current board members do represent a trustee area. Under California law, under the California Voting Rights Act and the Education Code, every 10 years after the census data comes out, you have to revisit your map that defines how your trustee areas boundaries are put together and determine whether they're going to have population rebalancing. There is a concept in the law of one person, one vote, and that carries out in trustee areas in the sense that you are supposed to have roughly equivalent populations in each of the trustee areas. It's also an opportunity every 10 years to review your maps and see if there are boundary adjustments you want to make for other reasons as between the 5 areas. In moving to by trustee area elections for the 2020 election, that was a result in part of litigation that occurred with the district under the California Voting Rights Act. And in settlement of that litigation, one of the things that the board decided and committed to is that it would use an independent redistricting commission to prepare the next map, the map that would be in place for a decade from the 2022 election through the 2032 election. Interestingly, up until 2019, 2020, school districts were not legally authorized to use an independent commission for this process. but timed out perfectly with the settlement of that litigation, the law was expanded so that you could have an independent commission. So what's happened is, well, many school districts that are going through this process have been meeting with the school board. You've had this independent commission meeting on their own to go through and follow the requirements of the stipulated judgment, the settlement of the lawsuit. The independent commission has truly been independent. Your staff has provided basically clerical support to it, but they have their own legal counsel. They have their own independent demographer, and they have carried through this process after having been appointed by a retired federal judge, Felton Henderson, who is a very highly respected judge, particularly in the area of civil rights. He also volunteered his time. So I just wanted to take the moment to thank him here for the work that he's done. So the commission went through the process that they had under the judgment, which was to have 5 public hearings at which they took public input on what would go into the map. They then had a map get produced by, or maps produced by their demographer, the independent demographer. At that point, they had 3 more public hearings. So there's been 8 total public hearings on top of the other meetings they've had. So the commission has been quite busy. Under the agreement, it is the commission that ultimately is responsible for selecting the new map. The board has no say and no control over what that map will be. However, the stipulated judgment does provide that before the map is finalized, which it must be done by the end of this month, March 1st is the deadline by statute, there would be an opportunity for this board to have a public hearing, really for 2 purposes. One is to solicit further input and make sure that more people are aware of this process, but it's also an opportunity for the board to raise any questions that they might have. My understanding is that Dr. Collingwood, who is the demographer that worked with the commission, was selected by the commission, is available tonight for any questions about the specific map. I did want to observe as well that the stipulated judgment required that the commission provide you a report, basically summarizing what they did. That came to you in the form of a letter or a report from Mr. Pitts, who is the independent legal counsel for the commission, and his observations about the maps as being legally compliant, following all the terms of the stipulation. And that's really what's before you tonight. There's one aspect of the maps I did want to make sure that you and the public were aware of. There is a goal under federal law, the Federal Voting Rights Act. There's an effort to be made to have at least 1 trustee area that is majority minority, that has 1 protected class that forms a majority. The demographer that you worked with when you adopted your maps did their best to get there and got to 1 trustee area that was 49% Hispanic. And they couldn't quite get to 50%, but the population rebalances after the census data. So actually the maps that are being considered the map that the commission is recommending and will take final action on now has achieved that same trustee area with some slight adjustments to the boundary is at 54% Hispanic. That's very important under federal law, because if you can achieve a 50% plus 1 majority minority voting area, you are supposed to try to do so within your trustee map. So the map is compliant in that sense from our perspective. So with that, that just sort of tells you where we are. The next step would be after your public hearing tonight, this will go back to the commission. I believe they have a meeting set for the 15th. They will make a final decision. They can obviously take into account any comments that the board or the public have tonight on the map, but again, ultimately it's their decision. And with that, I leave it to you for your discussion and for opening of the public hearing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Freeman. And at this time, we will invite the public for any comments or to ask any questions. And please raise your hand in the Zoom app. And if you are on the inside, fill out the orange card. And we will have 1 minute. Each person will have 1 minute to speak. And we will have 15 minutes allotted for this. 15 minutes allotted. So, and board members can speak as well. So, all right, we're going into the Zoom out.
So, sorry, President Christian, just a quick question.
Yes.
Do we need to raise our hands to speak and be part of the 1 minute? So, okay, so
Yes.
we also get 1 minute as long as we raise our hand. Okay, thank you. Just wanted to clarify.
All right. So I would turn that over into the staff hand to conduct.
Our first public comment on Zoom is Eddie Sanchez. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, Eddie Sanchez again. I was the last guy that talked earlier. Like I said, everything I gave you from the information I gave you earlier was from science, from medical field, and the whole world. There's nothing out there, not a doctor or scientist that's going to tell anybody here that we have a vaccine that could help you from getting COVID or spreading it. Not one in the planet. Why you guys still want to go with this mandate? Who knows? It seems like it's all political now. The science is not with you, and you're not with the science. The 100%, you're not protecting the kids here. If they get a side effects, can we hold you responsible? I'll take that back. We will hold all of you responsible. There's a lot of side effects. For the parents, look at open VAERS. You want to see the side effects of this vaccine? It's from the CDC and FDA. Everything is right there. I have not given you my opinion. Everything is fact from science. CDC Director, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Ronald Malone, it's there. These people are not following the science.
Our next speaker is Anton Junger. Please unmute yourself.
I would like to point out that the notice for this hearing says it's between 6:30 and 10:30 p.m. I would submit that you will get very few public comments because someone would have to stay on the meeting from 6:30 on to know when the comments were. Secondly, I'm very disappointed that the presentation is made by the district council when the commission has their own independent legal counsel and he is not given the opportunity to make the presentation. And the district's counsel, who has a conflict of interest in this matter, who opposed the lawsuit, is making the presentation to the school board. I think that this is a sham public hearing, wasn't given proper notice, and the legal counsel presentation is a conflict of interest. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jean Kinster. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, this is Jean Kincher. As a person listening, you asked for public comment on this item, not on other items. And in the past, you didn't let people talk about other items at this time. But on this item, you're talking about a map. What map? I don't see a map. What are we commenting on? Maybe we should have seen the map. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Don Gosney. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. I'm not speaking about the maps themselves. I'm speaking about the process. You tell us at the very beginning of the meeting that the only chance that we'll have to speak is under public comment 2.5 hours ago. And then you're reopening up this. I know it's a public hearing. You're supposed to open it up to the public, but the public didn't know that at the beginning of the meeting because you told them something completely different. Secondly, typically in a city council meeting, public comment for hearings like this, you're given 3 minutes. They actually add a minute instead of taking away a minute on this. And like the previous speaker said, it would have been nice to have shared that map. It's in the agenda packet, but it would have been nice to share it on the screen so that people could have seen it. They wouldn't have been able to read it, but at least they'd be able to look at it. The process is a little bit flawed on this one, but thank you very much for at least bringing it up.
Our next speaker is Salon Harrison. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening, board. Happy Black History Month. And what everybody said, you guys should have showed the map. I went to one of their meetings, and one of my concerns is that you guys don't look at the lines and how people, where they live and where their children attend school. I live in an area where I can vote, but my children attend school in an area where I can't vote. They're homeschooled. So I think the community should have more input about how that's done. Even if it's a court case, let's really look at, see who has equity in these decision makings on how these lines are made. And I don't think it should just be made on a percentage of a population like the court said, because that may not be effective and have equity for all kids. So I think we need to look at a couple of things with this. And like everybody said, we should have had proper notice.
Our next speaker is Demetrio Gonzalez Hoy.
Thank you so much. This is totally weird. But Mr. Freeman, I would love to hear answer to the following questions. Do we have an interactive map online that people can access and go play with like we did last time? If so, where? And then two, where can people access all the tools to see the maps and what the commission has been doing? And I just wanted to thank the commission for the work they've been doing for the last 6 months, and yourself, Mr. Freeman, as well.
Trustee Gonzalez Hoy, this is Ryan Phillips, the Communications Director. I can answer some of those questions for you. I do know that on the redistricting page on our website, which is www.wcCUSD.net/redistricting-commission, you can find information on the maps, previous agendas for meetings, recordings from all of the meetings as well. And I do believe the maps are there as well.
And Mr. Ryan Phillips, is there a interactive tool as well, like an interactive map? You have to press the button with the face.
There we go. I'm used to it getting automatically done. I would actually suggest, part of the strangeness of this is that the district wasn't in control of this process. The independent commission was. And again, my understanding is that Dr. Collingwood is available. And so the board may want to ask him that question if he's able to address exactly where the maps are available, interactive format, et cetera. I do believe that there is an interactive format, but I don't want to speak for him because it was truly his and the commission's process.
Our next speaker is Trustee Reckler.
Yes, thank you so much. So Trustee Gonzalez Hoy answered the question about where the public can find reports. Can we ask questions of Mr. Collingwood? That's a question. And then, is there an executive summary of the changes somewhere? So Trustee Area 1 looked like this. We changed it to this. We did this amount of work on Trustee Area 1. It shrank in this way. It shrank in this way. What we have here tonight is just one document describing the process, which is great, and some maps, but they sit isolated without other data to question them. I'd also like to thank the commission for their hard work, and that is the end of my comments. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is trustee Smith Folds.
Thank you, everyone. I think I have a couple of concerns. One, there's no map for us to look at. I've attended all of these meetings except for two, and it took me a couple of meetings to really grasp what was being said by the independent commission. So for us not to have anyone from the commission, or Mr. Collingwood is here, but for us not to be able to kind of have a presentation, at least a summary of how they did their work, I think makes it difficult for the public to have the opportunity to comment. Again, it's about having the knowledge so you can make an informed comment and make an informed decision. And so we can make an informed decision. I think that Trustee Reckler and Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy are both accurate. It would be nice to know that this is what it was, this is what it changed, and this is why. This is the why behind why the boundaries were changed or moved to create the equity in numbers that were needed. I think all of that would have been important. I also think that in the beginning of the meeting, it should have been forecast that you will be able to comment on this part, because it would have gave the community an opportunity to make the choice whether they needed to stay or wanted to stay for this part of the meeting. Thank you. Those are all of my comments.
All right, thank you. Trustee Flores.
Hello, I would like to hear answers to the following questions. I would like to know who represents each school or area. How does the voting process look like? And what can one do as a public if they do not like the person that is representing them? Thank you.
Our next speaker is Casey Pitts. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, this is Casey Pitts. I am the legal counsel to the Independent Redistricting Commission, and I've been listening tonight and I appreciate the feedback. I just wanted to answer a few quick questions that were raised. One is with respect to the information about the maps. If you go to the website that Mr. Phillips referred to for the Redistricting Commission, there is a link to the website that Dr. Collingwood maintains, which has a lot more detailed information about the maps that have been considered and the recommended plan that is before the commission right now, including a set of maps that lay the recommended plan from the independent commission over the existing trustee area maps, so that it is possible to see how the existing map that was adopted solely for the purpose of the 2020 election compares to the existing maps. With respect to the question about the members of the commission, as Mr. Freeman noted, and I do agree with his presentation, the members were selected by Judge Salton Henderson for the purposes of this redistricting process. They were, Judge Henderson, I think, did an excellent job of choosing committed public servants to develop the maps. And going forward, there will be elections within each of the trustee areas, as there has been in 2020 for the subsequent people to fill those positions.
Our last speaker is Lauren Collingwood. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, everybody. This is Lauren Collingwood. I developed the maps. I agree with everything that Casey has just said. You can find the maps interactive. We have interactive maps with different shadings by different racial populations as well at the census block level. The main difference between the maps, it does in fact center around District 3 to ensure that District 3 becomes a Hispanic majority citizen voting age population district. But by and large, I would say that the maps are relatively similar to the current lines, current boundaries, but there is that overlay that you can view on that. And so the main reasons the commission decided to make some adjustments are number one, population change and growth to respond to that. Number two, public comments that we got, specifically with respect to people living in a certain area, their child say attending a school, but then they're voting in a different district. That's impossible to completely eliminate that issue, but we did try to address that in some scenarios with respect to school attendance zones. And then, of course, we wanted to make sure that we were compliant with the different Voting Rights Act considerations. So those are my public comments. And thank you again for inviting us to your meeting.
All right, thank you. And now we will move on to the next item, which is F2. Review a process for selection of board president. And I will turn that over to Mr. Freeman. Dr. Hurst.
Yes, we have, Mr. Freeman also is going to share on that item as well.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you. I was asked to take a look at the process that the board followed in electing its board president and its board officers back in December. You have my opinion letter that lays out briefly what the conclusions were. And I know based on some earlier public comment, there were some comments made along the lines that the policy really intends this. We were really looking at what the policy requires, what the legal limits of it are. And if you actually look at your policy, it does lay out a consideration for the board of the process that you're going to go through when you select essentially a pecking order that the board will consider. And the intent is laid out in the policy that the idea is that there's supposed to be a rotation to the extent possible of the board members. But the key line is that conclusion in this board policy 9100 that the board has the ultimate discretion to elect or not elect any board member for any office. And the reason that in our letter we went into this concept that there's limits on the ability of a board to bind a future board and compel them to select a particular person for office, there is legal authority that talks about for contracts, when you're talking about cities with ordinances, you can only limit the discretion of a future board so much. And I think that's why that line appears in this board policy, that here is a preferred approach, here's an approach that the board at the time would like to see taken, but recognized at the end that ultimately the board can decide for themselves who is going to be elected an officer. And there is precedent in this district. It has not always followed exactly this order. There have been times where the board clerk has not been elected board president. And that's been done, again, consistent with this policy. So our conclusion was that the process that was followed, you were not compelled to appoint the board clerk as the board president. Ultimately, the board had the discretion whether they wanted to go that route or not. A decision was made by a majority of the board, and that is legally allowable and appropriate under the policy. So that was the conclusion. I know that the board had been interested in having our opinion come back to you all. And it really, the decision that's made by the board is the exercise of its discretion, and the board properly exercised that discretion.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. And now we want to move to clarifying a question. Start with Trustee Leon.
Leon, no clarifying questions.
Trustee Flores.
No questions.
Trustee Phillip.
No questions.
Clerk Gonzalez-Hoy.
Thank you, President Christian. Mr. Freeman, thank you for staying till this late. You work with a lot of districts and you see this policy probably quite a bit. What is the industry? Are we following industry standard on this issue?
Well, I will tell you, I do not see this policy a lot. This is not the model California School Boards Association policy. This is something unique to West Contra Costa Unified. I have worked with some districts that have something similar to this, maybe not exactly and as detailed as yours. And I've seen those districts sometimes follow that very rigorously. And I've also seen districts that elect somebody else. A specific example, just to give you, I won't name the district, but there was another district where they have a board vice president and a board president, and their policy does state a preference for the board vice president to become the board president. In that district, they had a brand new superintendent, and the board decided that it made sense to keep the same board president for a second year for continuity as the new superintendent came in. So it's just an illustration of it really, again, it comes down to the discretion of the board.
So what are the majority of school boards follow, if not this, the way that we do it?
I can't tell you whether it's an actual majority. I can tell you the majority of the ones that I work with, and we represent about 400, so it's a lot of them. I think the majority of those policies simply state that you elect a board president, you elect a board clerk. It doesn't say it'll follow this particular order, you have to have been in office so long. It literally is just left completely to the discretion.
And we're going to be looking at all of our policies through the handbook committee. If you were to make recommendations on this policy to us to change, not to put you on the spot, and you're welcome to say, we'll send those to you later, but do you have any recommendations for us to consider as we start that work?
Yeah, I think that ultimately it's your decision if you want to have a preference stated of how you're going to approach this. I do think that that final sentence that clarifies that you have discretion, that ultimately it's the board's decision, should stay in. I think if you take that out, it's probably there by legal implication anyway, because of your limits on the ability to bind the future board. And even if it wasn't in there, a future board could simply amend the policy at that point to add it back in again. So I would encourage you, whatever you do with that policy, it's probably best to make it clear that it does remain the board's discretion.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. That's my last question, President Christian.
All right, thank you. Trustee Reckford?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Thank you. And Trustee Smith-Fall?
Thank you so much. I have a couple of questions. Did the board properly state what is the unusual or exceptional case?
To my recollection, I was there that evening. I don't believe that the board stated a specific unusual case.
When in this district was the board clerk not been elected to president besides 2018? When other times?
I've only heard anecdotally from the past. The only one I know personally of, I believe, was 2018.
So when you said, can you repeat what you said about this district has set a policy or a practice, or I can't remember the word that you used, but you alluded to the fact that this has happened several times in the district. To your recollection, it's only happened once, and that's in 2018. Is that accurate?
I have personal knowledge of one time. I seem to recall discussion at that time that had referenced to this happening previously, but I don't have personal knowledge of it.
Thank you for that. And then why would on number 8, this format be followed except in unusual or exceptional cases, period? The board has the ultimate discretion to elect or not elect any board member for office. Why would that be 1 instead of making the first sentence, the format will be followed except in unusual and exceptional cases, and then making a number 9, the board has the ultimate discretion to elect or not elect any board member for office? I ask that because it seems like just linguistically that they are connected. Are they not connected?
I think they could be read connected. I think they can be read separately. Again, I'm influenced by the fact that the board does ultimately have the discretion. I also just note that it doesn't state that you have to indicate a reason. You don't have to indicate that's an unusual or exceptional case. So I don't know what the thought was of the board when they made the decision they made at that last meeting in December, if they felt there was an unusual circumstance or not. But to get back to your question, I read that last sentence as applying really to the whole policy. I think it probably would have been cleaner if it had been stated as a separate number 9, and I don't know why it wasn't.
So it could be read both ways.
I think an argument can be made both ways, but I don't think you can remove the last sentence from any part of this. I think that it's a legal conclusion.
And then secondly, when you go to the very first one, I believe it's number 2, the board clerk will replace the outgoing president. Can you give me your opinion on the word will? What does that mean? The board will replace the clerk. The board clerk will replace the outgoing president. If that stands, do you think that that's overridden by number 8?
I believe that the last sentence again modifies the entirety of the policy.
Not the first sentence, not the first sentence in number 8, but the last sentence.
The last sentence in number 8 is applicable to the entirety of the policy. There's also just this is very legalistic, but it uses the word will. It doesn't use the word shall. Shall is a statement of compelling that the board shall do this. It does not have a choice. So it didn't use the most directive language it could have used. Will is somewhere in between may and shall.
And then number 3, the board clerk will be a member who has received the highest number of votes compared to other board members elected that same time. Do you know who received the highest number of votes?
I do not.
Can you speak to the fact that if this board policy stays, is there a possibility that one member of a trustee area may never be elected to board president? Is that in the realm of possibility if this policy stays?
Yeah, that is a possibility. I believe this policy predates your move to by trustee area elections. It does. It was last revised in 2017. You moved to by trustee area elections by resolution in 2018. So I don't think that was taken into account in this resolution, or as this policy is written.
And what is the impact of not having one? Is there an impact of not having one area represented as president of the board? Is there any impact to that at all? Do you believe?
I think that's a policy decision for the board rather than a legal issue.
Thank you. And do you believe that the decision on December the 15th met the test of reasonableness?
I believe it complied with that final sentence of the policy.
But do you believe it was reasonable?
I believe anytime you comply with your policy, it's reasonable. And that last sentence makes it clear you could exercise your discretion, and the board did so.
Thank you. Those are all of my questions. I'm sorry, President Christian, I did have one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
Superintendent Hurst, were there any letters or anything that needed to be read into the minutes about this issue?
We have the letter. And I can ask our parliamentarian if that needs to be read into the minutes. No, it just needs to be attached from the parliamentarian.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, thank you. And now we will move to item G, comments from the board and future agenda items. And I just want to say we're going to have a short window. So we have 20 minutes. So within 20 minutes, 2 minutes apiece, and that should cover, and we will be wrapping up the agenda for this evening. So,
President Christian, I have a point of order.
Yes, go ahead.
Do we give comments after or no? After the discussion item, do we give comments or no?
The parliamentarian said no.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with this clarification from the parliamentarians, basically said no. All right, so we have 20 minutes, and so 2 minutes apiece to close it out. So we will start with Leon, trustee Leon.
All right, and did the 2 minutes start now? Trustee Christian, 2 minutes start now?
Yeah, come
Okay,
on.
perfect. All right, I would like to use this final comment time to finalize my comments on tonight's meeting. In particular, I would like to speak on items E1 and E2. This action item was brought forth by trustee Christian and Gonzalez Oy to, and I quote, revisit the April 28th, 2021 action to determine whether it should be modified in any way at this time to provide for greater flexibility. This is not intended to change direction of in-person learning. Pursuant to Rosenberg's Rule of Order, the board may entertain a motion to consider the prior board action if the motion is made by a trustee who voted, end quote. Alongside this, I want to address one of tonight's public comments, listened, and from what I heard, many parents have expressed their concerns about a possible return to online learning. However, to rephrase what one parent had to say tonight during tonight's public comment, the current quarantine time is not long enough for family members, as some still at home may still be infected with COVID. I think this is an example of what would have been discussed if that motion or if that item had not been boarded. Other parents have even asked for more transparency regarding the virtual academy, janitorial staffing, and other questions and other conversations that could be have had. Pulling these items, I believe, is quite irresponsible, especially when the student body of WCCUSD has been requesting this conversation to be had. And to conclude my comment, I want to finalize that as a student trustee, my vote on this board is solely advisory. However, trustee Flores and I do represent the opinions of all students in the district. The questions, comments, and concerns brought forth tonight by us were not intended to challenge or intimidate the board or superintendent in any way. All students of the district are concerned and will naturally ask questions. If trustee Flores and I cannot answer said questions with certainty, it is our responsibility to bring it forth to these meetings. Our votes tonight reflect the necessity to have these questions answered. Thank you very much for your continuous efforts, trustee Reckler, Phillips, Smith Folds, clerk Gonzalez Oy, and President Christian, and finally, Superintendent Dr. Hurst. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And next we go to trustee Flores.
First things first, I would like to express my disappointment with the pulling of E1 and E2 from the agenda. The reopening was great, yeah. Oh shit. The opening was great, yeah, and it has been a big relief for me since I was one of the students that struggled with the transition from in-person to online learning. But honestly, while the then new Omicron variant arrived and had caused chaos in school, it made me, along with other students from different schools in the district, become fearful and apprehensive with the return of school right after the holidays. We experienced high level of COVID cases in every school, short staffing and low number of students attending school because they and their parents were afraid, and that is absolutely fair. The fact that these agenda items were removed was a slap in the face for me, as well as for my peers. Many of us were hopeful to move on to possibly with hybrid learning, which is what we did during the spring of last year, and that worked just great. Students who struggled learning virtually were free to attend in-person learning and receive assistance from a teacher. And those who did not wish to go to school because of fear of being exposed to COVID can simply stay learning online. Therefore, this allowed teachers and students to be at school a lot safer and more opportunity to follow COVID safety guidelines, which are being 6 feet apart from each other, whereas in a classroom of roughly 25 to 32 students or even more on average is simply impossible. I would also like to mention the school lunches that are being served in Richmond High School. Many might think, what does school lunches have to do with anything regarding COVID? But let me remind you that students during lockdown fell into bad eating habits, and you would think that returning to school might have solved that problem. But what if I told you that it worsened? Students, especially students in low-income areas, either do not have a stable home where they receive a home-cooked meal every day, are foster kids, or cannot afford healthy meals. These school lunches are doing nothing but feeding those bad eating habits by giving out expired meals, chunky sour milk and yogurt, moldy fruits and veggies, along with moldy breads and chicken patties. Some students, the ones who can, prefer to bring their own meals, while others choose to throw away, or even worse, which I've seen many times, students being super hungry that they eat around the food that has already gone bad. That to me is disgusting, that students have to that students are being let to experience this, especially if the health and well-being of our students is our number one priority. I've seen this in Richmond High, and I can't imagine how other schools in low-income areas share those same experiences. Now, as to the substitute recruitment, I believe that just because we are suffering from teacher shortages, I'm afraid that we will just throw random people in a room full of students in need of a teacher and just turning out as a day of doing nothing rather than having a productive day and maybe help keeping those teachers that are out sick from being stressed, thinking whether or not their students are falling behind, and as well as making sure we keep them from feeling guilty that they are taking care of themselves. Having these subs have proper background checks and the right level of education and qualifications to carry on the class is important. I believe that the vaccination mandate should not be extended. It's simply not fair for those that did make the decision and follow the initial rules that were being given since the beginning of the vaccine mandate. I understand that Dr. Hurst has the credentials and knows what he's talking about too, but that does not mean that I am not entitled to my own thoughts and opinions, which is why I'm obviously here, to represent the student's voice, and while I'm at it, represent the teacher's voice as well. The people that experience everything firsthand and are living through the stress and fear. And I will continue to share my thoughts, and I'm sure the rest of the board members will do as well. That's why I think we are all here, to listen to the public and from there make decisions and questions based on what we've heard, just as Trustee Smith-Foltz mentioned. I just believe no one should be shamed for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Trustee Phillips.
Thank you, President Christian. I want to start out by saying that I believe that this is supposed to be a place of discussion. And I believe that this is supposed to be a place of informed discussion. And I agree that being informed means listening to the entire school community, students, parents, guardians, staff, volunteers, partners, unions. We can go on and on with the list. But I also believe that being informed means listening to our superintendent as well. He is, to be frank, our advisor. And that's really what he is. And it's incumbent upon us to go out and find the best superintendent that we can, and then listen to his advice. That doesn't mean that we will always agree. That doesn't mean that if he says jump, we have to jump. Or if he says jump, we ask how high. But it means that we have to show him a certain level of respect as a professional, and that we have to allow him to do his job. And I think sometimes we, in our zeal to represent folks, are obstructing him and his team from doing their jobs. And if we wonder why progress is not always as fast as we would like, sometimes we need to look in the mirror, because we keep diverting them from this and diverting them from that and making them run around in circles and then wondering why things don't get done as fast as we want. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we go to Clerk Gonzalez-Hoy.
Thank you, President Christian. First, I just want to thank the student trustees for always being so courageous with their thoughts and representing their youth. I think that the public very much knows that we have a divided board. We have various opinions. We're very opinionated. Gosh knows, you all know I'm very opinionated. But those opinions don't come just from Demetrio. They come from what I hear in the sites. They come from what I hear from students and teachers. I think that the division on the board might not change anytime soon, but what we can change is stop being so divisive with our words. I think that if we do something, we got to assume best of intentions of why we want to do it. If I disagree with Dr. Hurst, It doesn't mean that I disagree with him with everything he's doing, just in that one situation, because I'm hearing to different advisors. Dr. Hurst, you know better than anyone that if we disagree with you on one decision, doesn't mean that we disagree with everything you're doing. I very much respect you, Dr. Hurst, and it shouldn't be a conversation about whether we agree with you or not. That is, in my opinion, our position, our job, to continue to push you and your work. And I think that if we continue to when we creating our arguments, to create them around whether we agree with Dr. Hurst or not, we continue to increase our divisiveness on this board. I think that we have to do better. I think that our division is not going to change soon until we start understanding why we do what we do. It saddens me that I feel like we have to address this, but it feels like over time, we can't work together. We have to figure out a way for us to work together. I might not go get a coffee with someone on the board, but we have to be able to ultimately understand why each other does what they do. Thank you, staff, for everything you're doing. And Dr. Hurst, thank you and your cabinet for implementing everything we've pushed. I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Clerk Gonzalez-Hoy. And next we go to Trustee Reckler.
Thank you. So I wanted to start out by thanking the Verde community for welcoming me this week. I worked with Martha this week and helped parents sign their kids up for COVID testing. And I did that, I think it was on Monday. So it was Monday. And then I'll be there again on Saturday, 9 to 12, to help more parents get their kids registered for COVID testing. And you don't have to be in the Verde community. If you want to come get some help with that, you can come on out. And if you want to upload your vaccine card, I'll help you do that too. So come out to Verde, 9 to 12. Martha always has food. She takes care of you. So come on out and do that. I wanted to give thanks to a group that really doesn't get any thanks and kind of operates underneath the radar. I've been involved in the district for a long time, and I didn't even know that any of this existed. And if you go to your agenda, and it's number C3 under consent, and what it is CTE Annual Advisory Committee roster, and CTE stands for Career and Technical Education. And this is groups of industry heads, parents, teachers, leads, people from all across the community and the district who come in and talk about where career and technical education is going, hot items, hot career paths. They talk about industry trends, future trends, and I've been invited to attend some of these, and the work that's being done in there is so high quality and so amazing. And so I want to thank all of these people who donate their time to our students and to our teachers and to our staff and the work that they do. They serve from information and communication technology sectors. They serve from public services sectors. They serve from arts and media and entertainment sectors. They serve from engineering and architecture, manufacturing and product development, and health and science and medical technology members. And so reach out to Allison Huey if you ever want to come to one of the meetings and see what they talk about. And thank you to all of those who volunteer to work with us in that capacity. Good night.
Thank you. Next we go to Trustee Smith-Fall.
Thank you very much. I think this board only has the conversational fortitude to speak or mandate or demand or sometimes singularly direct when it's convenient. The sad truth is the community and some of the board members and both of the student trustees spend way too much time trying to activate all of our humanity, transparency, and accountability while questioning the integrity and the purpose. I agree with Trustee Gonzalez-Hoy. We do have to do better, but we have to do better with the recognition that we are doing something wrong. We are manipulating and threatening and shaming each other on the dais. And that's not what we're here to do. We are here, we should take in all community input. That's what we were elected. We were elected by the community. We were not appointed to this position. We were elected to this position. Our job is to bring their voice to the board. Our job is to bring their questions to the board. Our job is to set policy, but we can only do that when we're hearing everyone. So I would like to bring back the reports, bring back the standing reports from the student trustees, bring back the standing reports from the community, bring back the standing reports from our unions, bring them back so we can actually hear what is happening on the ground, so we can actually know the realities, so we can have an intelligent conversation and set clear direction. There's a lot of throwing the rock and hiding the hand. There's just a lot of it. There's a lot of throwing the rock and hiding the hand. There's a lot of lack of accountability from this school board. We are the governing board. We are the governing policy. We are the policy makers. That's us. That's what we do. Mr. Phillips, you said, to be frank, he is our advisor. You're correct. And to be more frank, we are the boss. Us five, we're the boss. So he is our advisor, but we are the ones who are sitting at the top, and the accountability is on us. We should be accountable to this. We should be accountable to, yes, schools were open, great, but were they open well? You've got 4 Williams complaints about 1 high school. You have to take that into account when we're making policy, when we're only selectively listening to what's going on. This young lady just told us, our student trustee, Miss Madam Flores, just told us that there's moldy food being served. We're not going to listen to that. We're not going to address that. It should be put on the agenda. We need to talk about it. That is a direct influence on student success. Everyone says it. Everyone knows you have to feel valued to succeed. The teachers have told you they don't feel valued. The students have told you they don't feel valued. The community has told you they don't feel valued. Your superintendent said he don't feel valued. Who's doing all of this? That's us. And Dr. Hurst, if you never said those words, I apologize for putting words in your mouth, but I read faces. This is on us. This is our accountability, the 5 elected members of the governance team, plus our student trustees, which once again, I don't think their vote should be advisory. I think they should, their vote should count. I'm digressing, and the last thing I would say, President Christian, because I know my time is up, we really do have to do better. There is no other option. We do better or we step down. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Trustee Smith-Fall. And last, I just want to say, to everybody, to the staff, everybody, you have doing a wonderful job, and keep moving forward. We have a lot of challenges, but we're going to get there. And to our student trustees, continue to be who you are, and be the voice of our students. You represent our students in the district. And so we got to keep in mind that if we focus on the negative, if we focus on the positive to override the negatives. The more positive things we build, the more things we will achieve and accomplish. And so, last of all, I want to say this is February, is actually known as Black History Month. And the first was what, yesterday? No, today. Yesterday was the first. And so February is dedicated for Black History Month. And so I just wanted to say, to all those who, from the past to present, we honor. And tonight, we will close out the next scheduled Board of Education meeting, which is Wednesday, February the 16th, 2022, in person here at the Vanya D. John Middle School and online on the Zoom line. So We will now adjourn the meeting and everybody have a safe and wonderful evening. Take care.